Bowers, a deep drive to right. Back is Walker, still back, and Bowers wins. 1-0 Brewers on the 8th home run of the year by Bowers.
Line drive right center. Back Scott, it's up against the wall. 1 run's in, 2 runs are in. Terang is held. It's a 2-run double for Contreras.
And Mitchell a drive to center. It's back. It is gone. 3-run bomb for Garrett Mitchell.
What a fun night out at the ballpark for the Cardinals yesterday as they were blanked. That's right, blanked by the Milwaukee Brewers 6-0. That audio courtesy of the Brewers Radio Network. Along with Tanner Henderickson and Eric, I'm Alex Ferrario in for BK, T-Bone, and Eric today because BK is now on vacation. We're 2 ships passing in the night, T-Bone.
Yeah,
I had my days.
This ship anchored in place for now.
You had your time off before, and now it's time for BK and I to just
say much.
Cross past each other.
When times get tough and the All-Star break shows up, this guy's out of here.
Hey, you ain't lying there. Once free agency is done in the NHL, I'll probably be gone for a little bit again. But we're back in the saddle as the Cardinals get back in the saddle later on this afternoon following another loss to this Brewers squad. 6-0 last night, and not a good performance for Michael McGreevy, T-Bone. Looked like things were moving along well for him through the first 3 innings. 4, they get that run, but then the 5th inning is just where things unraveled. You give up the double to the superstar that is Christian Yelich that BK just will refuse to acknowledge. Walk, double to William Contreras. It's 3-0. They go to the bullpen with Ryan Fernandez, and things really get out of whack there. And this is now the 2nd straight game where you look at it for Michael McGreevy and you start to wonder, is regression coming? And I think we all knew, T-Bone, that it was going to happen at some point for him. But for Cardinals fans that were excited about this season and specifically excited about Michael McGreevy and what he was showcasing, you hoped that that top end of the rotation starter would prevail. But with the Pirates giving up 10 hits, and then, of course, in this Brewers one where he was only able to get through 4, boy, if he regresses to the point where you start to just wonder, it's like, okay, yeah, he's probably a back end of the rotation starter, and Cardinals can survive with that. Boy, it puts the Cardinals in a really tough spot because now you lost the series to the Pirates, you split the series against the Reds, and no matter what, you're losing this series to the Milwaukee Brewers. This was where they were supposed to kind of set themselves up in the NL Central and showcase, like, hey, they can compete with these teams. And we'll get to the offense a little bit later, but when your offense isn't scoring, you need your pitching to keep things low scoring. And if Michael McGreevy's not able to do that, I know you guys talked about Libby yesterday, who are you relying on to keep this rotation afloat if it's not McGreevy or Matthew Liberatore?
Yeah, to your first question, yeah, I agree. I mean, you're starting to see regression. I said this after the Pittsburgh start.
Yeah, I mean,
my big takeaway was there are some, I don't know if they're red flashing lights, but there's definitely alarm bells starting to go off. And I think, to be honest, it's kind of been that way. Like, you look at his Baseball Savant page, blue's not good, and there's a lot of blue on there.
I thought blue was great, man.
No, we like red. Red is more of our color for that, just like we're Cardinals red. But you look at it, and all the underlying numbers say, hey, this guy's been one of the worst pitchers in Major League Baseball this year. Now, I think he can get by, and I don't think he's going to end up becoming the worst starter in baseball. His expected ERA, though, is 5.84. His expected batting average against is 296. Yeah. Those are 9th percentile and 4th percentile in baseball. So the numbers say he should be, the advanced metrics say he should be one of the worst pitchers in the game.
Well, and that goes to the point of what Ollie told us against that Athletics game where they took him through 74 pitches because they said, like, hey, he can't keep getting away with this. And then you go to the Pirates to where he couldn't get away with it. Same with the Milwaukee Brewers.
And the reason I think he can kind of avoid some of this is because he mixes his pitches so well. He is a pitcher, not a thrower. But he pitches to just too much contact, right? And you're going to see balls where they get smoked and they end up right at somebody, or you're going to see where it gets smoked and it just finds a hole. And then that's how some of these innings start to compile up on him, to where you see last night he gets into trouble and ends up becoming 5 earned runs against him, even though he didn't give up the final 2. Fernandez allowed those ones to come in. It's just too hard to live this way, right? Especially when you don't have much swing and miss. And I get it. He had a couple decent amount of strikeout stuff last night. I'm not quite sure what's up with the Brewers. Suddenly they seem to be chasing a lot against the Cardinals, but there is definitely regression coming. You know, I don't know that you can rely on him to be the quote-unquote stopper in a rotation, and he's kind of served in that role for the Cardinals so far this year, but to your point on what happens if the regression is here for him, I think if you want to look at a positive side on this, the guy that's on the mound for him today, I think some positive is coming his way, right? I don't think Dustin May's a 5 ERA guy. I think he's going to be better, so you have to rely on him. You have to hope that Libby can really, with his most recent uptick in strikeout stuff, can maybe go on a bit of a heater. Maybe he has 10 really good starts while McGreevy starts to regress back to the norm. I don't think it's the end of the world that we're seeing McGreevy come back down to earth. The question, though, is fair of, okay, well, who's going to step up while this is occurring? And I would pinpoint Dustin May and Matthew Liberatore of those guys. Maybe Leahy, I could hear an argument on him because I think he's been better of late, but I still don't trust him enough.
Yeah, and I'm with you on Dustin May. Like, Dustin May's start this afternoon is the perfect timing for them because they need a stopper right now. Your offense is in a little bit of a dry spell. They've scored 18 runs in their last 6 games total. Quick math, averaging about 3 runs per game. That's not going to get it done for you with your pitching. So Dustin May is one of those guys. Matthew Liberatore, though, and I know you guys had that conversation yesterday about how good that whiff stuff has been, and I'm not disagreeing with what you and BK were talking about. There is concern, though, that even with the swing and miss stuff, things get out of hand with Matthew Liberatore on the mound, and you're relying on your offense to pull you back in. So, yeah, Kyle Leahy could be one of those. I mean, Andre Palante at times looks like he could. It just, the concern is things can get ugly quick, as you're seeing right now, where you lose the series to the Pirates, you split with the Reds, you lose the series against the Brewers. You've got the Cubs this weekend. And then after that, you're talking about maybe they're not great teams, but you've got Texas, you've got Cincinnati again, you've got the Mets, you've got the Twins, you've got the Padres. Like, things can get ugly quick if your pitching goes into a little bit of a rut, your bullpen's not able to close things down, and your offense starts to down spiral, which is why what they did early on and how great Michael McGreevy was so exciting, because you finally found that guy that was the stopper. And I think to advance the conversation, you just saw in the last 2 days, T-Bone, what Milwaukee threw out there on the mound, what the Cardinals still lack. Like, Jacob Mizorowski was freaking insane. That many 100-plus mile-an-hour pitches with the movement on those. Harrison last night, I was telling you in the office, I was listening to the Brewers broadcast, and they were talking about how unathletic Kyle Harrison looks. But then when you see the ball come out of his arm, you're like, oh, my God, where did that movement come from? It seems to be every time Milwaukee throws one of their pitchers out there, that's the stuff that they command. And that's what the Cardinals still lack. That's what McGreevy's been great. He just doesn't have that kind of stuff that can assure you things are going to be fine once you get to the spot in the rotation.
Yeah, when was the last time the Cardinals had a good 1-2 combo in their rotation?
Carp and Waino?
That's what I was just about to say. Does it go all the way back?
Was Seamart good when Jack Flaherty was good?
I think that was at the point when Seamart had kind of started to tail off a little bit. Because Jack's big year was, what,
2019?
No, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah, 2019 was where he had 196 innings with a 2.75 ERA.
So maybe you could argue.
So what was Carlos Martinez at that time? I thought he was starting to down spiral at that point.
Yeah, I think he was. And he may have been in the bullpen by 2019. But
oh, yeah, 2019, yeah, he was a bullpen arm at that time.
So they haven't had this since Waino and Chris Carpenter. Yep. I mean, it's different because the game is different, but I mean, you're 100% right. Watching the Brewers, I'm going, if you could just like merge the two teams.
I know, right?
I feel like you'd be pretty good, right? Like you merge the Cardinals offense with that Brewers pitching staff. I think you've got yourself a pretty good combo. Now the Brewers offense, it doesn't do a lot of the sexy stuff, or let me rephrase that. It doesn't do what wins more in the modern game, like slugging.
It's sexy stuff for you.
Yeah, my sexy stuff. But they do a lot of the singles, steal bases. They manufacture slugging. Yeah. But if you had a Mizorowski and Harrison on this team here on the Cardinals, oh, my God, would it be disgusting? Because you look at those guys, Mizorowski, like you said, throwing 100-plus mile-an-hour pitches 50-plus times in his start, has a sub-2 ERA. And then you take a look at what's going on with this Harris cat that they ended up getting in this trade with the Boston Red Sox. He's got a sub-2 ERA. He's got a 1.57 ERA in his first 10 starts as a Brewer. That's best for the first 10 games as a Brewer since 2008 when they acquired Sabathia. Like, think of that for a moment. Yeah. Everybody remembers that run Sabathia went on after the post-deadline, and Harris is going on this incredible run himself. So, yeah, that's the thing that the Cardinals are missing, and that's what you're hoping you're going to have in your system with Doyle that's developing at AA, or with Senja, or if Quinn Matthews can figure out his command. The hope is that those guys can come up here and be difference makers like Mizorowski and Harris.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but that Harrison trade with the Boston Red Sox, we talked about that in the offseason. Wasn't that for the outfielder from Milwaukee that we were wondering? No, it was the third baseman, Durbin, that we were wondering. It's like, why are they making the trade for this? Like, this makes no sense. He's not anything sexy from what the Brewers had last year, and he has not been good for the Boston Red Sox. That's what makes Milwaukee so dangerous. They see this type of guy, and they say, oh, well, we can get out of him what we need for this pitching staff. And that's what the Cardinals, you hope, have turned the leaf with, right? That's what you hope Chaim Bloom is able to identify, whether it's Hunter Dobbins or Richard Fitz, whenever we get to see him. I know he's dealt with the injury this season, but like those types of trades are what makes Milwaukee so dangerous, because they can go out and bring in a Quinn Priester. They can go trade for a Kyle Harrison who had a 4.5 ERA with San Francisco and be like, yeah, we can make this guy elite. And now he's putting up CC Sabathia stuff. So this is why, once again, Milwaukee is the darling of the NL Central, and they will be until somebody stunts their system.
And you think about it, even like it's not even just on the pitching side. Like you mentioned Durbin. I think Durbin's the one they acquired, if I'm not mistaken, in the trade when they ended up moving on from Freddie. Well, no, not Freddie Peralta. Who am I thinking of? The pitcher from a couple years ago, closer, Devin Williams.
Hey, oh, really?
I think that's where they acquired him from. So, like, I mean, they just continue to do this constantly where they're ending up winning these trades and identifying talent. I mean, it's unbelievable what the Brewers have done. And we talked about it last year, and I'm sure we'll talk about it again even more maybe tomorrow or later on today. They've just lapped the Cardinals and what they're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable. You look at the roster and go, no, they can't be that good. It's the Rays model, right? You look at the roster and go, I have no idea who half these guys are, and yet somehow they end up winning like 90 games. Now, we'll see what they do in October. It's the one thing that they're still trying to kind of get over the hump with.
Right.
But, man, now that they've got this 1-2 combo in their rotation, if the offense can just do slightly enough in October, I mean, they've got a chance to be a dark horse for a World Series again.
Yep, and it comes down to the system and the style that they play. And I know we'll get into this in the 1 o'clock hour. Ken Rosenthal put a piece out that, these teams that aren't typically the highest payrolls are the ones that are leading the divisions, and could they make a big swing like the Brewers did when they acquired CC Sabathia? But Cardinals get the Brewers again later on this afternoon, 12:40 first pitch with Dustin May on the mound. Along with Tanner Henderickson and Eric over on our board today, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up next, speaking of that game this afternoon, Abner Uribe yesterday kind of ignited a flame that we wonder if it turns into a bonfire for the Cardinals. Could we finally see a rivalry get reignited? We'll discuss that next here on 101 ESPN.
challenge it. Cardinals have 2 of them left. Oh, look at Uribe.
Yeah, that's not acceptable. Yeah, it's just unacceptable. I don't know what got over him. I mean, he's been an emotional guy, but that kind of thing, that's just not how we do things, and I was embarrassed by it. And, you know, why are we doing it? It's 6-0 game. What are we doing there? And there must be something deeper that I don't know about. I love the kid. Believe me, I love the kid. There's so much good in this kid. He's been so great for us in so many ways, but that's unacceptable. So whatever's going on, he can't tolerate that for his teammates and for everything else. It's just not going to be tolerated. That's all there's to it.
So that's Brewers manager Pat Murphy speaking last night after Abner Uribe, and if people aren't wrestling fans, they won't understand this reference, did the DX crotch chop. T-Bone, I don't know if you're a big fan of D-Generation X. I grew up loving those guys. Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Road Dogg, Badass Billy Gunn.
Not my thing, but I do get the reference.
Man, you anytime you just don't like what somebody has to say, or you know, when you want to fight the power, you just give them the crotch chop. And that's what Abner Uribe did to Alec Burleson when he struck him out at the end of an inning when it was 6-0. And as you would imagine, it got a lot of people up in arms because, one, why are we celebrating after a 6-0 shutout win where the Cardinals really weren't that competitive? And also, you weren't the guy that helped them get to that victory. Now, let me preface everything we're about to talk here, T-Bone, and I don't know where you stand on this. In another scenario, I don't mind that at all. Like, if that would have been a tight baseball game and it was 3-2 and it's picking up the series win and he does that, cool, man. I think it's a little disrespectful, but it's how you celebrate, and you got to deal with it, just like the bat flips or anything like that. Stare down. I'm fine with it. But in a situation like that where it makes absolutely zero sense, it's a little dumb. And so you heard Pat Murphy's reference, but this is where social media, T-Bone, really kicked it up another notch, because this was Abner Uribe after the game when he was asked about his antics.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, everyone here knows me and knows who I am, and knows I have a bit of a history of being emotional out there. But again, I think first I owe an apology to the Brewers. I owe an apology to my teammates, to my manager, all the bosses of the team. I understand that that's unacceptable to go out there and to react in a way like that. But at the same time, I don't think it's professional for their manager to be making signs towards our dugout saying that he's going to be hitting guys. And there's an event that occurred during the practice today too, and I don't think that was right. So I have my teammates back always.
Okay, so now Abner Uribe is going, and by the way, that's through his translator.
Weird way to handle that.
Weird way to handle that, right?
I apologize. I apologize to everyone. But the Cardinals, they still suck, and I hate their manager,
They
basically.
can suck it, is what he essentially said. But what Ollie is signaling to the Brewers dugout that he's going to start hitting their guys? Look, I'm not trying to sound like a homer here, but what? When in Ollie's history has he ever signaled to the other team or tell his team to start throwing at the other side?
Ollie's got some fire in him.
Not that fire.
Not that fire. And there's nothing that points to, this should happen, right? Unless there was something last year that I can't remember. But, at times would definitely, if Dustin May went out there and plunked a hitter, it wouldn't shock me right now. I wouldn't say it was directed by Ollie. I don't think he would do that. But there's nothing that I can remember from last year that would kind of bring this on to where the Cardinals would be frustrated with the Milwaukee Brewers. If anything, I think they'd be more frustrated with the Cubs, because remember they had the thing with the Cubs where they were pushing the coaches back into the coaches box because they thought they were stealing or trying to get a tell on the pitchers, what the Cardinals pitchers were gripping the baseball with. Mm-hmm. I have no idea where that came from Uribe, but can I be honest? I didn't love the crotch chop. I didn't love that. Even in a game that's close and in a big-time scenario, I don't think you should direct that towards the other team's dugout. I think that's just disrespectful. Yeah. I don't think that should happen. And if he was a hitter, I would plunk him.
I mean, the next step to that was basically flipping the middle finger.
Yeah, I'm cool with showing emotion. I'm with you there. If you want to give a big fist pump, you want to yell, I'm cool with that. The crotch chop towards the dugout's too much, in my opinion, and I think a line was crossed. And I do think Murphy handled it properly, the Brewers manager. Man, I'm kind of hoping for fireworks today, though, because I love a good rivalry, and especially when it's in the division. Because when you have one of those rivalries like it was with the Mets a couple years ago where it was Alonso gets tackled by Stubby Clapp, don't get me wrong, it was fun. It kind of had its moment. You only see them 6 or 7 times a year.
Yeah.
The Brewers, man, you see them 13 times. Oh, and by the way, there's going to be a 5-game series coming up in, I think it's August here in St. Louis.
Oh, man, that's going to be brutal.
I kind of really hope there's fireworks today just because I think it would create an awesome rivalry between these two teams.
You asked me this question in the office, and I want to pose it to our listeners as well. Do the Cardinals have a rivalry? Because I think everybody's immediate answer is the Cubs. I don't see that. That's a historic rivalry. Like, you're ingrained to hate the Cubs logo, just like the Blackhawks logo or the Detroit Red Wings logo. That's a historical rivalry. Do they have a current rivalry right now, or where you play a team, you hate that team prior to last night with Uribe? Because for me, I don't think they do. There's not a team that I see that I'm like, God, I hate this team. Like Minnesota Wild for me in hockey, I hate that team.
Really? I don't feel that way towards the Wild.
It's just because of the recent playoff matchups that they've had. And in the regular season, there's guys that have just gotten under your skin, right? Like Ryan Hartman with Jordan Binnington, Joel Eriksson Ek for some of the stuff that he's done that get under your skin. There's not any of those guys in the National League that I feel like when the Cardinals play, I want to see them destroy.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. I think the Cubs, like you said, that's more of a regional rivalry. I think the hate towards the Cubs now is more towards one player, and we talked about it at the time, or last week. It's Pete Crow Armstrong. That's like really the guy that I hate on the Cubs. Yes, I hate the Cubs because it's the Cubs, but it's not a like passionate, like this is must-watch television for me like it has been in years past. Like you think back to 2015 when the Cubs had first kind of come out of that rebuild and they were talks of being a dynasty with Rizzo, Schwarber, Baez. Well, the Cardinals were winning 100 games that year, and I think the Cubs won 98 or 97. That was not just a regional rivalry, but also a rivalry that had some true juice to it. They don't have that right now. Yeah. And I think that's lacking. And I can already see there's a couple people on the text line like, what are you guys talking about? It's clearly the Cubs. No, that's just a regional one, right?
And it's a historical one.
You're born to hate the Cubs. That's nothing. That's always going to be there. I'm talking about something that, like, it's got some juice that's going to bring your attention to it, right? And I don't think they have that right now. I think at times the Brewers have been that. Like when we talked last week about hated players, when they had Prince Fielder, Braun, Nigel Morgan, and they were, I don't know if they were the class of the Central because I don't think they had that significant of a run. They were there when you had Brandon Phillips with the Cincinnati Reds. Honestly, Castellanos, when he was with the Reds, had his moment.
Who was it that he stood over on the home plate? It was a pitcher.
Woodford?
It was Woodford. That's right.
Like that had a moment where it created a little bit of buzz to it and some juice. Same with the Alonso one when Stubby Clapp tackles him when he's with the New York Mets.
That was great.
And you had the famous clip of Gallegos like Spider-Manning over the bullpen wall, which was awesome. That's juice to a rivalry, right? And I hope that we might be getting that with the Brewers because I think it's very symbolic as well. Because when you look at the Milwaukee Brewers, they're doing everything that you used to be. Right? They've developed a pitching pipeline that the Cardinals used to do. The way that they kind of play is more Whitey ball-esque than what the Cardinals are trying to do, what they talk about doing, because they get on base, they steal a ton of bases, and they have been the team that has really shoved you down and said, we are the class of the division. Yeah. You may doubt us every single year, but when you play us, we're going to kick your butt and we're going to put you back in your place. Yeah. And the Brewers have really done that since 2023, and I think that's what would make this rivalry so cool, especially if there's become some juice to it today, because they're doing everything that you used to be, right? You used to be the class of the division. You used to be the model to build towards, and now it's everybody thought it was going to be the Cubs. The Cubs haven't really taken off. No. I mean, they've just lost 10 in a row now this year. It's become the Milwaukee Brewers. They are the team in the NL Central, and I hope this becomes a really good rivalry over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I looked it up in the office. The Cardinals are 10-16 against the Brewers in the last 3 seasons, not including this year yet. So, like, I mean, they've kind of beaten you up, and I know it's not as bad as you thought, but they have beaten you a lot when you've played them. Just my prediction on this, I don't think anybody's getting plunked. I don't think the Cardinals can do that because, honestly, Abner Uribe kind of did it the right way because if they throw at him or somebody on the team today, well, then everything he said is true and everyone looks at the Cardinals a little bit differently. So I don't think Ollie is going to tell his team to go out there and hit the other side.
I don't think Ollie tells anybody. I could see May doing it. I don't think he does it early because I think he could get tossed early if he does it.
See, I don't think that's what happens. I think what happens is, and I forget, was it...
You thinking Herrera gets the double and then does the chop?
No, that would be hilarious. Is Pages behind the mound today?
Yeah, Pages is behind the plate.
I think Pages gets in the face of one of the hitters when they step up to the plate.
Yeah, Pages ain't that guy.
Maybe somebody's going to do that. Somebody is going to get in the face of another player in the middle of the game. I just don't see anybody throwing a ball and plunking them, because then it's just, well, the Cardinals narrative was right. Ollie was signaling to his team to hit them.
I don't think that. I think it gets. I disagree on that, because I think it's Uribe starts this whole thing. Right, I think Uribe's the guy that kind of starts. He can say that. No, Pat Murphy didn't come out and say, yeah, well, Uribe had issues with the Cardinals dugout because he thought they were doing this, and we've got an issue with the Cardinals. That wasn't said, and Murphy could have said that.
He could have, but I think in that scenario, you just got to play it the right way so you can calm things down. In all reality, what's going to happen today is the umpires are going to issue a pregame warning that says if anybody does anything, you're going to get tossed.
91, the bullpen's been warming up.
Maybe.
Sorry, Mr. Bowers. That sinker just happened to get you in the middle of the back.
I'll be fascinated to see, who do you plunk in that scenario? You plunk one of their best players, right?
I don't think you have to. I think it just depends on, because I think when you plunk a batter, you need to do it in the midst of a inning in which it's not
going to hurt you.
Yeah, or it won't hurt you, or like you're towards the end of your inning. Because again, the umpires will be aware of it. So like if May hits the first batter, there's a chance May could be ejected after the first batter.
Yeah, somebody on the 314. By the way, our Air Comfort Service text line 314-399-9646. You could jump in on the conversation there from the 314. What would Yachty do today if he was still playing? Exactly what I said.
Yeah, Yachty would do.
Get in the face of one of the hitters, and that's why I just wonder. And you're right, Pages may not be that guy, but do you see him turn another leaf? Because guess what? Everybody forgets about the offensive struggles and Jimmy Crooks if you go out there and you do something like that. I think that's the type of fireworks you get today. Somebody will say something to the other side that will spark a bullpen run out. And that's the fireworks you're talking about, T-Bone, and I couldn't agree more. The Cardinals, in the midst of a rebuild, need a rival. Like, you need some type of rivalry that you latch onto, that's the team you hate. And it's smart to do it against the Brewers because they are the class of the Central Division. They are the team that you were years ago. And for the team, like, if you've ever needed a rally point in a season, it's right now. It's when your offense is struggling beyond your first four hitters. It's when your pitching's starting to go the opposite direction. It's when you've lost 2 series in the Central matchups before you take on the Cubs. Man, you need to ignite a flame. And now I feel like is when you take that opportunity against the Milwaukee Brewers. So I'll be fascinated to see what happens today. 12:40 first pitch with Dustin May on the mound, and we'll see if somebody gets plunked or maybe
plunking or not, Dustin May should throw a lot inside today because these guys are definitely going to the plate going, oh, am I going to be that guy that's got to wear that fastball?
And then that's how you turn on your teammates when you get pissed off at Abner Uribe, because now everybody's going to start getting plunked at this time. So I can't wait to see it. Tanner Henderickson, Eric Harkey is on the board, kind of our mound today. We'll call T-Bone as your battery mate with this one. By the way, 314-399-9646 again is the Air Comfort Service text line. We'll get to questions and answers coming up in 30 minutes. You can also join us over on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. Our studio cams brought to you by the Air Alliance team. And our time check brought at 11:32, which is brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Coming up at 15, questions and answers. But coming up next, the Vegas Golden Knights are moving on. Mitch Marner is one of the best players in the playoffs right now. Could he be doing what potentially a Blues player could be doing this upcoming season? We'll get into that next year on 101 ESPN. Alex Ferrario back with you to talk about my friends over at Classic Air Care. We're starting to get into that humid weather. It's nasty outside, which means when you go in your house, you want to be comfortable. You want to enjoy being in your home rather than it being hot outside or being worried about your home getting hot inside. And that's where Classic Air Care comes into play, because if you've got an HVAC system, which everyone does, and it's older, 18, 19, 20 years old, you're thinking, oh gosh, I hope I get through this upcoming summer. Take the stress away. Call Classic Air Care, a company that has been making people comfortable since 1926. I've been using them since 2016. Had an older unit in our older home, and let me tell you, they were able to keep that bad boy running every single year. And a lot of it is because of their maintenance agreement, their tune-ups that they take care of. And in the month of May, which you only got about a few more days to take care of this, you could do a tune-up for $89 on the AC to clean it, make sure everything's good to go, get your questions answered of how to maintain it through the hot summer weather, all thanks to Classic Air Care. You've got technicians that have been doing this for 30 plus years. Call them today, schedule online. Just do me a favor, tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. Classic Air Care and classicaircare.com.
Good morning. My name is Eric Harkey with your Sports Center update, brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. The Oklahoma City Thunder win against the San Antonio Spurs at home in Game 5, 127-114. Game 7, it will be tomorrow in San Antonio. This Sports Center update was brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. You'll be saying, I love my windows.
So last night, the impossible happened. And by impossible, I think it's because every expert out there, like myself included, thought Colorado was going to beat Vegas with no problem. And that was not the case. Colorado didn't even win a game. Didn't even feel like they had a chance in this series. They were swept courtesy of the Vegas Golden Knights, who now will advance to the Stanley Cup final. The fourth time that they've been to the Stanley Cup final in their 10-year history. It's wild to think about what Vegas has done. And the center of attention for Vegas is Mitch Marner. He's got 7 goals and 21 points in 16 games. And, of course, the reason people are talking so much about him, T-Bone, is because Mitch Marner was the guy that couldn't get it done with the Toronto Maple Leafs. The narrative for the longest time was, well, Marner's the problem because Austin Matthews scores all the goals. Nylander shows up in the playoffs. John Tavares is an incredible center. Mitch Marner's the problem, and they need to move on from him. They did so. Toronto misses the playoffs this year. They're selecting first overall, and Marner's headed to the Stanley Cup final. I got to thinking, and we did a new episode of the Last Minute Blues podcast today, and I asked Donnie this question because when you talk about Mitch Marner from the Toronto perspective, it's get this guy out of here. He doesn't get it done in the playoffs. He's a guy that shows up in the regular season but doesn't show up when it matters most. And now everybody is Toronto is going, oh, my God, I can't believe we moved on from that guy. Are Blues fans doing to Jordan Kyrou what Maple Leafs fans did to Mitch Marner? And what I mean by that is You're not happy with his production. You need him to be better, and you want him to be better, and you just get exhausted to the point to where it's, man, I'm done. Need to move on. You need to change for change's sake. They did. It hurt them. Are Blues fans worried that that same thing will happen with Jordan Kyrou?
I think when it comes to Kyrou, I would expect that the moment you trade him, I don't know if I'd say you live to regret it, but I would expect him to get back to being a 30-goal scorer. And I think he's going to be a perennial 30-goal scorer consistently. And for the most part in his Blues career, he's been that. Outside of this year, this is the first year that you've really seen that lack of goal scoring from Jordan Kyrou. Mm-hmm. So I think that will end up happening. Do I think the Blues fans will ever get to the spot where the Maple Leafs are right now of going, I can't believe we actually let that guy go? My answer is no. And the reason I say that is, one, I do believe in sometimes you just need change for change's sake. I think the Blues, and honestly, Kyrou might honestly be in this scenario as well for a change of scenery. But the other thing is, I don't think that he's going to go on and end up doing Marner-type stuff that we've seen like in the playoffs. Because Marner was one of those guys that was like the elite player that never ends up, for some reason, performing in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And I think that a superstar like him eventually breaks through. I believe that across the board, right? I keep saying this about Lamar. I think at some point Lamar might be able to break through at the NFL playoffs. I've said this about Josh Allen when it comes to the quarterback position as well in the NFL. Same with Dak. I think Dak could potentially break through at one point with the Cowboys. I think the same can be said about guys like a Mitch Marner. Kyrou's not a superstar, and that's where I don't think that you're going to see the same level of, I can't believe we let that guy go. Yes, it's hard to replace a 30-goal scorer, but we're not talking about a guy that's a potential 100-point player. I never see that in the range of outcomes for Jordan Kyrou, so I don't think there will be a seller's remorse as much as there has been from the Toronto perspective when it comes to Marner.
From the 618, they aren't even close to being the same player. Terrible analogy, Alex. I never said they're the same player. It is obvious Mitch Marner is a superstar, and Jordan Kyrou is a really good player. But it's a similar scenario to where fans are frustrated with him and want him gone. And when he's gone, it's a more comfortable environment, and you look at it and you say, oh, boy, that's the scenario I'm presenting here. And the narrative of him not being a playoff performer is interesting because he hasn't scored goals in the playoffs, but he's nearly a point-per-game player throughout his time in the postseason with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like, if you look at it, he's produced more points than Austin Matthews in the playoffs. He's produced more points than John Tavares in the playoffs, and he's incredibly strong defensively. But my answer to this is the same as yours. There's no buyer's remorse if this happens. If he goes on to have success, I look at this the same way I look at a lot of other situations that have happened. Good for that player because it just wasn't going to work where they're at. Now, it's a little bit different. Like when you're the Carolina Hurricanes and you see Martin Necas go to Colorado where you had that production, then it's like, oh, damn, that was a really good player because you don't have Mikko Rantanen anymore. But this is more of the scenario of where you see a Jordan Kyrou, let's say he gets traded to the New Jersey Devils next year, and he's scoring 30 goals and puts up 75 to 85 points. Boy, I'm going to look at that and say, yeah, it makes sense because it just matches the style that they want to play more so than where the Blues were at. But I do find it very interesting just with Mitch Marner, man. Sometimes when you find a comfortable spot, you perform better. And I think that's the scenario that the Blues are going to be in with Jordan Kyrou, to where it's like, look, yeah, people may have wanted him out, but I don't think this is going to be, man, he could have done that for the Blues. And I see a lot of the responses coming in saying, yeah, but Jordan Kyrou's had a regular season problem. That's just this year. Yeah. The last 3 seasons, he's been a 75 to 80-point producer for the team. Again, I never said he's Mitch Marner, but the scenario is very similar to where you want him gone, and when he goes elsewhere, you want him back.
Well, and I think the thing that also helps make it a little easier as well is if you trade Kyrou, odds are, now again, I've said at some point you maybe just have to accept not what his true value is. Odds are, though, that you end up getting a decent return for Jordan Kyrou, right? Now, maybe you miss out on the trade and you get it wrong, but if they move on from Jordan Kyrou, it's not like what Toronto did, where Toronto moved on from this superstar and Mitch Marner. They traded his rights, and you know what they got in return? Nicholas Waugh. Mm-hmm. They didn't get any. I mean, that's a guy that ended up putting up 23 points. Or excuse me,
that's not even on their team anymore.
He put up 20 points this year for them, and then they ended up trading him to Colorado. So they don't even have anything to show for the return for Mitch Marner. So I think that's where you look at this and you say, there's where there's a little bit of difference to this, is if you trade Kyrou, yes, there is a decent if not great chance, that he ends up getting back to being a 30-goal scorer. But if you're trading a guy that's a 30-goal scorer, odds are you're getting something pretty good in return, whether it be a young defenseman that can potentially fit into your top 4 moving forward, or maybe you go out there, maybe you get a second-line center for Jordan Kyrou. You're going to get potentially a better return for him that should, in theory, help absorb that quote-unquote loss of Jordan Kyrou's 30 goals.
Now, I'm glad you brought that up because I don't know if you guys got into it yesterday, but over the weekend, Darren Dreger was on Hockey Sense with Andy Strickland and talked about the Blues, where he basically said, hey, keep an eye on St. Louis because everything Darren Dreger is hearing is that the Blues are aggressively trying to move up in this draft. Earlier today, Scott Wheeler and Corey Pronman did one of their mock drafts of If I'm the General Manager, and it had Ivar Stenberg moving all the way down to number 5 in that draft. He didn't go top 2, nor did Gavin McKenna. McKenna went 3rd to the Vancouver Canucks. I do think there's smoke around this fire now to where I think the Blues are looking at this saying, we've got a lot of commodity, which, by the way, Colorado losing last night means that their draft pick is now 29th in the draft, not 31. Yes. So you move up a little bit. So now you got a little bit higher of a...
forgot about that.
I know. You get a little bit higher of a commodity in that front. That's where I think the Blues do try and get aggressive. And to your point, T-Bone, that's where you look at potentially moving Kyrou to get the better player in return. You're not talking about it if you get something back in return. Nobody's really mentioning Tage Thompson as much because you got the Stanley Cup. If you get something back in return that's helpful, that's where the Blues can succeed, and that's where you potentially get Jordan Kyrou. The other thing that I found interesting from Darren Dreger as well is he mentioned Anaheim and St. Louis potentially trying to make a move at the deadline. Nothing popped up. Man, there is a scenario, and I don't know how aggressive the Blues get, nor if they can pull this off creativity-wise. There's a scenario where they can move up in the draft and get a winger and go to Anaheim and get their centerman and Mason McTavish. Because if that's who they're floating out there, maybe that was the deal that they were searching for all along. This could be potentially an exciting offseason for St. Louis. It's just a matter of how aggressive do they want to get, and is another team willing to accept their aggressive offer?
Yeah, if you end up in a spot where you see, like you mentioned, the mock draft today done by the guys at The Athletic where Stenberg drops outside the top 4, okay, now I feel like there's more of a chance that you could see that move end up happening. I'm not buying that Stenberg's not dropping out of the top 4. I think he's going to the Blackhawks. All the smoke until literally today has been that Stenberg was not falling past the number 4 pick. And if that becomes the case, I mentioned this yesterday when we briefly touched on this, I don't know that they're trading up. I think there is a lot of smoke. I agree with that. But I don't know that there's really a flame here because I think everybody right now is saying, yeah, we're open for business, right? If you're the Sharks, you're stupid not to listen on the number 2 pick. But is anybody really going to meet that asking price? I don't think that's going to happen. So I don't doubt that the Blues are sniffing around. Where I become skeptical of all of this reporting or buzz around them moving up is, would they really want to move up from like 11 to 5, for example, if the top 4 guys are off the board?
No, I don't think so.
My thought process is no, because based on everything that we've heard and interviews that we've done, once you get past those top 4 and you get more in that 5 through 11 range, you're going to settle in with about the same quality of player. Just kind of depends on how the board falls out. And if that's the case, I don't see them moving up. Now, if there's real buzz that Chicago will, if you get buzz that Stenberg is going to drop, okay, now we're talking. But I'm just skeptical we're going to see these trades. I can hear the Anaheim one. That one makes sense.
Yeah, the Anaheim one totally makes sense.
But moving up in the draft, it hasn't happened a lot, right? I mean, there's been, like one trade that's happened recently?
No, not really.
Moved up. I mean, there's just none of these trades happen. It's just buzz, and then nothing happens because teams value these picks just too much.
Yeah, and that's, I think the only scenario you're moving up is if Stenberg or Malhotra, depending on who they like, is available. And in the scenario that Wheeler and Promet, now, mind you, this is them doing it as if they're the general managers. This isn't what general managers are doing. They're acting as the GM of the team. That's where it dropped. If it drops, then yeah, you can move up in that spot, but they have to make sure they're getting the piece that they want, which is the one that you're just skeptical of. But I do think there's a lot of creative conversations happening for St. Louis, and it gets you to wonder if they can finally possibly find a way to go out there and get one of those top echelon players in this draft rather than drafting at 11 and 15. Tanner Henderickson, Eric Harkey, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is our Air Comfort Service text line. You send us questions, we'll answer them next here on 101 ESPN.
questions, BK and Ferrario may have the answers. Questions and Answers is presented by 100 West Dental. Does your dentist actually satisfy you? Dr. Pryor and his team will at 100westdental.com.
314-399-9646 is our Air Comfort Service text line, up on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL, along with Tanner Henderickson and Eric Harkey, who is running the board for us today. BK is on vacation. He'll be back on Monday. It's time for questions and answers, where you send us a question and we will answer it here on BK and Ferrario. I've seen about 3 or 4 of these, and I got some of these on Twitter over the last couple of days, asking if Boone Jenner is an option for the Blues. I don't know if you're familiar with Boone Jenner's game, T-Bone. Can you name the team Boone Jenner plays for? There we go. See, T-Bone, you're a hockey guy.
I'm not incompetent when it comes to who's these hockey. Now, isn't Boone Jenner like a third-line center?
He's a 32-year-old centerman that plays in their second line. No, I have no interest in Boone Jenner. I think Boone Jenner is a lot of what Braden Shen was. And you just traded away Braden Shen. So, no, you're probably talking about a 3 or 4 year deal for Boone Jenner. Honestly, I'd rather just have Pius Suter. I think it makes more sense to just keep Pius Suter as that center rather than Boone Jenner. So I would stay far away from that one. I will reiterate, do not go to free agency in this offseason.
Yeah, well, I agree with that, because I saw yesterday, before Malkin signed, he was like the only guy that was a point-per-game guy on the free agent market, which is insane, and that guy's in his 40s. So, yeah, I'm with you there. I have no interest in Boone Jenner. I think Shen's the perfect comp, right? I mean, he's second-line center. The reason I said third-line center is team probably wants to upgrade from Boone Jenner if you have him as your second-line center.
Columbus would prefer that.
Yeah, I'm with you. And he doesn't match up the timeline for what the St. Louis Blues are trying to do.
Yeah, Boone Jenner is a guy that signs with the Edmonton Oilers for a cheap price because he wants to win a Stanley Cup, not go to St. Louis to be a second-line center, which in reality is going to be a third-line center. From the 314, I love how you guys don't like Uribe's antics, but when Wilson Contreras hits a home run and stops and stares in the Brewers' dugout, you, quote, liked his fire. I think those are two very different things. I think we said that at the beginning of that segment. If he would have just fist pumped and stared down the dugout, I wouldn't have cared. It's when you do the suck it sign to the team, which again is one step away from the middle finger. That was the problem with Abner Uribe, not so much the fire he was showing. I like that competitiveness.
I love the competitiveness, and I love baseball letting the players kind of do it a little bit more, but I'm with you. I think at some point there's a bit of a line to draw on that, and I think going to your crotch like that is there. If Contreras would have done that after a home run as well, I would not have been thrilled with it, even if he was a St. Louis Cardinal. By the way, can I give you an update on all of this?
Oh, yeah.
So this is from Jeff Jones. Oli Marmol said this morning that the Brewers were, in his view, relaying signs to, obviously from the dugout in the first game of the series. He gestured to them to be smart and pointed to his ribs and said they were going to get someone hurt, as a warning, not instruction. That resulted in a confrontation with the Brewers coach who he declined to name, and then a conversation with the staff post-game to try and smooth things over. He said he hasn't spoken to Pat Murphy.
So
Uribe's issue with Marmol kind of had some truth to it.
And it started because of a confrontation between a Brewers coach, not their manager, but a Brewers coach, and Oli Marmol in pregame.
Well, it started first with Marmol thinking they were relaying signs, and then it led to pregame
stealing
yesterday.
Signs, you mean?
Yeah.
And so, and Oli basically told them, you keep doing that, somebody's going to get hurt.
Yeah.
So Abner Uribe was right.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, don't think it warrants the suck it sign. Do love the fire that's taking place between these two teams. And now all of my statements of Oli Marmol not saying somebody's going to get hit are incorrect.
Well, he did say he didn't tell anybody to hit anybody.
But he was saying somebody's going to get hurt.
He did send a shot across the bow.
But that's also not the manager telling them these guys are going to hit you. It's, hey, you're going to piss off some of our guys and somebody's going to get hurt.
Yeah, probably not what you want your manager to be doing, but whatever, I'm here for it.
Today is going to be outstanding.
There may not be intentional fireworks today, but there might be accidental fireworks.
I was going to say, I think there's actually going to be meaningful fireworks that take place because now these guys don't like each other.
They don't like each other, and the reason I said it could be accidental fireworks is I don't know if they'll hit somebody on purpose, but they might hit somebody and things then really get going.
What happens first, a on-field skirmish where everybody hits the field, or Oli gets ejected?
Well, it's hard to get ejected now.
Oli will find a way. We haven't seen him get ejected yet.
I'll say I I mean, I would lean on field skirmish because it's just so hard to get ejected nowadays.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. From the 636, with McKenna not going number 1, do you see the Blues going after him and using 2 picks and Kyrou to get him? I don't know if, one, McKenna's not going number 1. I just think the piece on The Athletic today was those 2 guys taking a defenseman instead. I don't think the Blues would value McKenna over Stenberg or Malhotra. Now, I don't know this to be true. I'm just going off of what I look at. I think they'd have more value for Stenberg because he played against men, or Caleb Malhotra because he's a centerman, than they would a Gavin McKenna.
I think that's fair, especially because, as we've seen in the past, Steen loves the Swedes with Stenberg. And then, like you said, the center position, how valuable it is. I can see where they end up going with Malhotra over McKenna. I think I agree with you. I could see where they would prefer those 2 over Gavin McKenna. Now, if they can move up to get McKenna, I think they still would do it, right? Yeah. Because, I mean, he's just an incredible talent. There's no reason not to move up and get him. But I definitely, I can see where you're coming from on they would maybe value the center and Stenberg more.
Yeah, like in a scenario, if 1 and 2 are both defensemen, 3rd overall is Malhotra, Stenberg goes to the Blackhawks at 4, and McKenna's sitting there at 5, I could see him try and go after a Gavin McKenna. But I just don't know if another team would want to trade that away if they think McKenna's really good. All right, let's do 2 more before we take a break. From the 618, if the offensive struggles continue for another week, could you see the Cardinals bring up Joshua Baez? He continues to slug and steal bases. Would be a huge upgrade over Victor Scott.
Nope.
He's an upgrade over Scott. Where is he playing?
Well, it's twofold. One, where is he playing? I don't think he's a center fielder, right? I went down and watched a game in Memphis. Now, it's only 1 game, so it's a very small sample size. Doesn't look like a center fielder just to my eye from 1 game. I think he's more of a corner guy long term. And if that's the case, you don't have a spot for him, right? You're not playing him over Walker. You're not playing him over Newbar, and you're not playing him over Herrera at the DH spot. And they probably would prefer not to have a kid DHing consistently. And then the second thing is, I guess he is on the 40-man roster, so you don't have to worry about that. So really, it's just a matter of where are you playing him. And there's no spot for him. So no, I don't think they are going to call him up. And if New were out a lot longer still, I could see it, right? You can make the argument to put him in left field potentially. New's going to be back next week, so there's just no spot for him.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Let's get more into that because the bottom of the order for the Cardinals has not been doing good. Doing well? Probably well. Better English for Ferrario, but I'm not an English major. Can the Cardinals get more out of that area on their team, or is this just where they're at? We'll discuss that next here on BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Henderickson and Eric Harkey. I'm Alex Ferrario. BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Cardinals shut out last night to the Milwaukee Brewers 6-0. They'll wrap up the series trying to avoid the sweep this afternoon. 12:40 first pitch with Dustin May on the mound and potential fireworks taking place out in Milwaukee. So last night, on top of Michael McGreevy regressing a little bit, T-Bone, I guess a tie for the biggest story in that game, because we kind of talked about which one stuck out to us the most. As much as McGreevy's struggling in back-to-back games, it's the offense. They get shut out. In their last 6 games, they've scored 18 runs. Last night, they had 7 hits. 3 of those 7 hits came from the top of your lineup in terms of Herrera, Walker, Burleson. 2 of them came from Brian Torres, who was brought up a few days ago, and 1 of them came from Joel Pozo, who is just a clear-cut bench pinch hitter for you, who comes up in big situations, and then Victor Scott had 1. But Jose Fermin, who is batting 5th, went 0 for 4. Mason Wynn, who continues his offensive struggles, went 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. Nolan Gorman, who had a pinch hit in that one, went 0 for 1. And then, as I mentioned, Victor Scott 1 for 3. T-Bone, you did the numbers earlier today. In the batting order 5 through 9 for the Cardinals this season, they're batting .217, which is 27th in Major League Baseball. They've got an on-base percentage of .282, which is 28th in Major League Baseball. They got a slug percentage of .332, which is 29th in Major League Baseball. And their OPS is .614, which is worst in Major League Baseball. It is very obvious they have a problem at 5 through 9, which seems like a Captain Obvious statement, but early on in the season, as well as the top 4 were hitting, they still had guys coming through with complimentary moments. Now they don't have that, and it does beg the question, what do they do? Because I don't know if it's getting any better if you're relying on Fermin, Gorman, Pages, and Victor Scott, or really Mason Wynn for how much he struggled. If you're relying on that to get better now that we're nearly 3 months into the season, you might be looking for fool's gold.
Yeah, I think this is going to get slightly better internally to where it won't be the worst in terms of OPS. But I think this is kind of where they're at in their build right now, right? While you're still waiting on, you mentioned his name in the last segment, Joshua Baez, to find a spot for him, and what you're going to do when you eventually get Reinel Rodriguez here in 2 years, 3 years maybe. I think this is kind of what it's going to look like for the St. Louis Cardinals. I think there's guys that you hope can continue to make some strides. Like, my hope is that Mason Wynn is not 17% below league average. He's crushing lefties right now, but he's not hitting right-handed pitchers. I'm hoping we're going to see that change. Maybe some aren't, but I'm still holding out a little hope that maybe there's still some life in Nolan Gorman's bat still. And then once you get Nootbaar back here, he's going to slot into, I think, 5th probably in your batting order would be my guess today. Okay, well, that immediately upgrades that 5 spot in theory. Right now, if Nootbaar can get back to who he was, you're talking about going from Nolan Gorman, who typically hits in the 5 spot, or Fermin, in yesterday's case against left-handed pitching, upgrading from 13% below league average to hopefully anywhere between 10 and 20% above league average. That'll be a significant boost to these numbers here in that 5 through 9 spot. But I don't have much hope for Victor Scott, we'll see what they do in center when Newt comes back. Maybe they go Brian Torres, so maybe there's a little bit of a chance that you get an upgrade there. But I don't have much hope for that center field position. I don't have much hope for Pedro Pages behind the plate. I think his value is more for his defense, which is fine, long as the other guys are carrying the lineup. To me, it comes down to, are you going to get more out of Gorman and Wynn? And I'm still a little hopeful on Wynn and a little bit hopeful on Nolan Gorman. But if you're hoping for external additions to this, they're not going to do that in a year in which they are, quote-unquote, rebuilding.
Yeah, the external addition is Lars Nootbaar. In all reality,
it's just as good as a trade as I've been told.
It's worked in the past, apparently. But when Lars Nootbaar comes back, I would imagine we think he's going to hit in the top of the lineup, but maybe not. Maybe he becomes a 5-hole hitter for you. So that lengthens it a little bit more now that you got that addition in there. And all reality, I think we're asking about Mason Wynn. I think the ship has sailed on Nolan Gorman to where, sure, you're hoping that maybe things can change a little bit. He has a little bit more competitive at-bats, but he's just so hit and miss, pun intended there. Mason Wynn is the one that you're looking at being like, man, I thought there'd be a little bit more. But you're right in the way that you broke that down, T-Bone. There's no other answers at center field. Like when Nathan Church comes back from his injury, Nathan Church can be the center fielder for you. Maybe he gives you an uptick in offense slightly there. at the catcher position, look, they're not bringing up Jimmy Crooks. I think it's time for people to just understand and admit it's not happening. Was that Tony? You made a face like it was Tony, but
No, because I was kind of thinking, yeah, no, that's fine.
They value the defense. We've talked about this before. Yes, he's hitting the ball well. They're just not bringing him up because he's not playing. So the catcher position, Pedro Pages is there. And then, with Jose Fermin, Brian Torres, wherever you're looking at, maybe when Ramon Urias comes back, it's somebody that can give you a little bit of an uptick. But in all reality, the way this improves is Lars Nootbaar comes back and is what Lars Nootbaar has been in the past, and you get Mason Wynn out of this rut. That's what you're hoping for. And frankly, that's what this was going to be all along. We knew that this was not going to be a Joshua Baez. We knew that Jimmy Crooks was going to be a scarce option for this team throughout the season because these are guys that they want to get answers on. It may frustrate you, but this is where they're at, and they just want to let these guys continue to develop in the minor leagues.
Yeah, and maybe if you turn to Torres potentially in center field, maybe you get an uptick there in that spot as well, because I think his hit tool is at least interesting, and it's hard to kind of come to a conclusion on what he is since he's only played in, 4 games or whatever it is as a big leaguer. But yeah, the guy for me that's really kind of the surprise in all of this is Mason Wynn. And I was lower on his bat going into this year because of what he did last year, but I don't think he has to be anything that's ungodly, right? He's just got to be 4% above league average like he was 2 years ago.
Yep.
If he could be a 267, 314, 416 slash line, you can live with that, right? Because his Gold Glove defense is going to be what boosts his WAR to where it was 2 years ago at 5.1.
100%.
And right now, he's not hitting right-handed pitching. He's really struggling in that regard. And if you can get him to start to just become a decent hitter in that 6th spot, and then you add in Nootbaar at the 5, all right, now you've got the lineup towards lengthened out a bit. Most teams aren't very happy with their 7 through 9 hole hitters, unless you're like the Dodgers. Sure, the Dodgers might be able to have where they're happy. But most teams typically are more defense first, 7 through 9. Most teams aren't, quote-unquote, defense first, 5 through 9. That's when you're really trying to put just too much pressure on the top 4 in your lineup, to where when you have a Jordan Walker go through a little bit of a rut, or right now where Weatherholt's been kind of going through it here in the month of May, you really notice it, right? Because now you're just saying, okay, well, there's just 3 guys that are hitting for the Cardinals. You don't have that 4th guy going, and there's a chance that those guys are going to kind of fluctuate through the year. Not very often do you have 4 guys at the top of the order all going at the same time. Typically 1 or 2 of them is in a rut, and for this team, they just can't have that happen because of what you're talking about with this bottom of the order where they're last in OPS.
So build this out for me. Just humor me a little bit here, T-Bone. Let's say Lars Nootbaar comes back. You're going up against a right-handed hitter. Where do you put Lars Nootbaar in the lineup?
I put him 5.
You put him 5. So
I'm not changing the top 4 because
so
unless
you're still going Weatherholt, Herrera, Walker, Burleson.
Oh, I'd go against a righty. I'd go Burley Walker.
Walker. Okay,
yeah.
so left, right is where you're going with left. So then in that scenario, you've got Lars Nootbaar there. You're probably putting Mason Wynn in the 6
Yep.
and hoping that he hits in that spot. Nolan Gorman,
7.
3rd. Pages 8, and then Victor Scott 9.
/ Torres 9.
So really the 2 dark holes in your lineup is 7 through 9. Like you said, that's what you want. You want a lineup that's good 1 through 5, and then hope that you get some production from those guys beyond that. So I think people want Baez and Crooks and Blaze Jordan up here, and I get it. I'd love to see them up here too. How are you making it work?
Yeah, they're in a tough spot right now with that because I don't know if they would say he's ready, but there's a chance by July Baez is ready.
Sure.
And Crooks, people are making the argument he's ready. Cardinals can have their quorums with that, but if they were ready, they're just blocked right now. And I know people really don't like me to say that when the blocked person in the party is Pages, but it's just a matter of the fact that
it's the Cardinals, man. They want defense from their catcher.
And I said this yesterday on the Redbird Report, which new episode if you haven't checked it out, by the way. You can watch it on our YouTube channel, 101 ESPN STL, or anywhere that you get your podcasts.
Oh, baby.
But I said this offseason is when they're going to get to decision time on who they want to have stick around. They might get to it in July when it comes to Lars Nootbaar, because I think if Nootbaar comes back and plays well...
He's a trade candidate.
He's a trade candidate, right?
Totally.
You can try and trade him. Someone would value a left-handed bat that gets on base at a decent clip if he's back to what he was when he was healthy. Teams would value that, and he's a pretty good defender out there in the corner. So a team could look to trade for that, and then you clear up that spot potentially for Baez. But right now, they don't have any spots to where it is, okay, we need to put that guy in there in their view. You know, I understand a lot of fans would say Crooks for Pages make it happen. They value the defense from Pages, you know? And if they're going to value the defense behind the catcher position, well, then Crooks is just blocked right now. And then if you've got a guy like Lars Nootbaar, you're not benching Nootbaar for Joshua Baez. And I'm sorry, I don't think Baez is a center fielder. So you're not going to put him out there in a spot that the Cardinals really value, which is defense up the middle. They've just got two guys that are potentially ready that are just blocked right now. And they're going to have to free that up by the time we get to the end of next offseason.
And they don't need to be brought up until August. They don't need to be brought up until towards the end of the season when rosters expand and you get a little taste of it like they did last year with Jimmy Crooks. The one that you didn't mention that people want is Blaze Jordan. Blaze Jordan would have to be them admitting we're done with Nolan Gorman. That's the only way he's going to play. If you're going to play him at third base, because you're not getting a whole lot of first base opportunities for him, and the DH is split between Herrera and Burleson and these other players. So you got to have them admit that Nolan Gorman's a done commodity. And I don't think that's happening with this Cardinals team from what Ollie told us when we had him on last week talking about Nolan Gorman. So I think this is just where things lie for the Cardinals. Now, the one roster spot that I know people will say,
I see it from Scorsese
what
on the YouTube channel.
They doing with this guy, Thomas Saggese? What exactly is his role, and how do the Cardinals combat that? We'll discuss that next here on BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Kerber is going to join us in about 15 minutes, along with Tanner Henderickson and Eric Harkey. I'm Alex Ferrario. Cardinals' first pitch against the Brewers coming up in about 20 minutes. So yesterday, T-Bone, we saw a scenario where Saggese could have helped. Now, could have is a loose term because he really hasn't helped this season.
He could have been in the lineup. That's the way I
could have been in Memphis, and somebody else could have been up. But yesterday against a lefty, Cardinals start Jose Fermin at third base, and then started two lefties in the outfield with Torres and Scott. That's not ideal when you got a righty sitting on the bench in Thomas Saggese, who can play one of those two positions. So this was from Derek Gould, our Cardinals insider for the Post-Dispatch, talking to Ollie about Thomas Saggese's role, which essentially now is the backup shortstop to Mason Wynn.
And that's literally about it.
Yeah, I think we've discussed, this is the quote from Ollie, I think we've discussed before what our intentions were, and then we've had injuries. That's the spot we're in. It's unfortunate, but there's no way around it at the moment. And T-Bone, you brought up the perfect comp. He's Brandon Crawford. Minus the best friends with Nolan Arenado / DJ role. He is Brandon Crawford.
For all we know, he could be friends with Arenado.
And you know what? Maybe he's got good vibes in that clubhouse.
I haven't been yet.
I haven't been either.
I think I might go this weekend.
Typically when they have those post-locker room audio sessions, boy, let me tell you, it is a rave. But Thomas Saggese's role is barely see him, gets to run occasionally, but otherwise he plays if there's an injury. And Ollie basically saying, like, look, all of these injuries have happened in terms of Ramon Urias has gone down and Nathan Church has gone down. We've had to keep Thomas Saggese here because we've lost these guys. I understand it. I don't like it because I think this is the scenario that Blaze Jordan makes this roster, right? You bring up a guy that can play the third base role for you, that can be a bat that you can insert into the lineup. But a tale as old as time for St. Louis Cardinals fans, when you bring up Blaze Jordan's name, you also have to finish that up with, yeah, but the 40-man roster. And really, that's what's hindering his ability to be brought to the Cardinals. They have no 40-man roster spot for him.
Yeah, because I get it with the Saggese thing, and honestly, I'm okay with it because, I think some of this stuff's overvalued on the 40-man roster that they cry about. But I look at this and go, okay, this guy clearly doesn't have a role on the team. They can mention that he's the backup shortstop. Well, if you're only going to use, like I checked this out because I thought, well, Urias wasn't the backup shortstop. I guess he technically was. He had 2 games at short for the Cardinals. Well, if you mean I'm going to have to use him twice potentially before we see Urias, who I think that was reported yesterday is starting to do some activities again, so he may be getting closer to coming back. If that's the case, can't I get by with Prieto at shortstop for 2 games? He was playing it down at Memphis. So why not just go with that? Or Fermin if you wanted to, because I know he's done it as well. I think you could get by when it's only a game or 2. And let's be honest, if we're talking about a game or 2 when Wynn is off, I'm assuming it's a getaway day lineup, which is typically a scheduled loss anyways. So I don't fully understand why they don't want to utilize this as a full 26-man roster. And you said it. Their counter would be, well, how do we get Blaze Jordan on the active roster? He's not on the 40-man. They do have 1 spot open. They're saving that for when Newpark comes back. So when Newpark gets activated, that will be a spot that they will cover. And then the question, my guess is they'll send down Saggese. Now it becomes a question of, okay, well, if that's the case, then I guess maybe this isn't a conversation with Blaze Jordan. But I don't understand why they've waited this long because I think Prieto could have been your backup shortstop in a pinch if needed. And to get Blaze Jordan up here, might as well just see what it looks like, right? Against left-handed starters. I don't know how well he is at third base, but Burley's been the 3rd worst hitter over the last 3 years against left-handed pitching. If you needed to, you could get Burley a day off his feet potentially against lefties and put him in the lineup. So I'm with it. I understand the frustration about it because this whole backup shortstop Brandon Crawford role, we saw what it was. It carried little value for the Cardinals the year that they tried it, and then they eventually DFA'd Crawford. You know, they probably should have moved on from Saggese and sent him down to the minor leagues. Not DFA him, but send him down to the minor leagues. Because at this point, not only is it not beneficial to the team, it's not beneficial to Thomas Saggese. Right. How is he supposed to develop when he's not even seeing action right now in games? That's not going to help him. He should be at the minor leagues playing every single day. You could bring up a guy like a Blaze Jordan to come up here and just get occasional pinch hit opportunities or some starts against left-handed hitters, and your 40-man move would have been like DFAing Roy Croft or, and I know no one wants to hear this, but potentially Tink Hence if you don't think he's fixable since they had to send him down as rookie ball to try and fix his fastball. Those are the kind of moves you could have done, and I understand it. Then you got to DFA somebody else potentially when Newpark comes back. man, figure it out. Start churning through this 40-man roster. It is not a very good 40-man roster. It's poorly constructed with 5 catchers on it right now.
That's the problem.
On top of multiple minor leaguers that are on the injured list, which I get that one. That one's just unforeseen circumstance. It is not a pretty 40-man roster to look at.
No, and then that's, you want your biggest problem, it's that, what you mentioned. You've got 5 catchers on this 40-man roster. That's why you're not seeing any roster moves here. You've got Pozo, Pages, Herrera, who's labeled as a DH, and then you've got Bernal and Crooks on your 40-man roster. And we've already addressed the fact that Crooks isn't going to be getting called up. So now you got another catcher on here that's even further down on that depth chart.
And this is why I found it shocking they didn't make a move in the offseason. I think you and I talked about it on a day where BK was out. I was shocked that they didn't make a move in the offseason with their catcher depth.
Yes. Well, and didn't they DFA Pozo? Because we were like, oh, well, they're going to find a way to bring him back because they DFA'd him to make their roster moves, and they brought him back.
Something with the contract and all the kind of manipulation stuff that they were trying to do, but yeah.
The Blaze Jordan one is frustrating because there's guys on the 40-man that I just don't see a future for the Cardinals. You mentioned Roycroft, that's one of them. Tink Hence might fall into that category, and then you've got 5 catchers on here, with one of them probably never getting a call up in Leo Bernal, and Pozo, who is essentially what Thomas Saggese is, just at a different position, right? You're a better pinch hitter than Thomas Saggese, but you can only play one position for us, and that's first base.
And the tough part with like the catcher situation, I'm not saying you DFA those guys because that would just be poor asset management. But like with Jimmy Crooks and Leo Bernal, you knew Bernal was going to have, I think it was Bernal got added to the 40-man in the offseason. You knew that was going to happen. So now you have to the scenario to where if you're going to bring back Pozo, which I understand why they're doing it because they're so fearful of losing the DH on these days where Herrera DHs, and if they have to pinch hit for Pies like they did in Cincinnati, or if, hopefully it doesn't happen, but if Pies were to get hurt, then they're in a pinch. They're just so afraid of that it forces them into the spot of having 5 catchers. To your point, it log jams the 40-man roster. Yeah. And I mean, find a team across baseball. Typically they've got 3. You might find a team or two that has 4, 5. I mean, that's ridiculous at that point.
That's where you look and try and make a trade early. And I know you wait till the deadline to see what's out there, but that's where you just try and look to make a trade to get yourself a asset that can help you in a certain position. Like we talked Milwaukee earlier. Milwaukee seems to do this a lot to where they've got assets. They say, well, let's move this and go get a guy that can help us in another area that we're deficient in. Now, I'm not saying you just give away a top asset that could be Jimmy Crooks at the deadline, but do you make a move with a guy so that you open up playing space? Maybe that's ultra aggressive in this scenario, but again, we're also assuming that Blaze Jordan is a guy that can perform at the major league level. He's gotten the opportunity in the past, and it hasn't panned out. I know he's working well now, but you don't know what that looks like at the major league level. But honestly, with Thomas Saggese, I'm at the position where I'll take a shot. If it's 2 weeks worth, then it's 2 weeks worth. Let's see what it looks like rather than continue down this stretch of where you know what you're getting from Thomas Saggese, and it's very little to none. On the other side, a positive spin on all of this, the Rookie of the Year odds are continuing to climb for J.J. Weatherholt. I saw on USA Today kind of tracking over the Rookie of the Year so far this season, and J.J. Weatherholt continues to rise in this front. It's him, Sal Stewart, Connor Griffin, and Nolan McLean. And what's wild about this, T-Bone, is J.J. Weatherholt right now is probably going through his worst slump that we have seen this season. He got out of it for a little bit with a couple of big hits, but now he's just kind of fiddling back and forth with this spot that he's in. The fact that you're getting this Rookie of the Year conversation for a J.J. Weatherholt who is struggling adds to the hype of what this guy could be for the Cardinals moving forward.
Yeah, when you look at it, he is the favorite on BetMGM. He is the favorite on DraftKings. He is the favorite on FanDuel. Now, it's not by much. Sal Stewart's right behind him. Mm-hmm. And The Athletic today in their piece had him as the guy that they would pick to win Rookie of the Year. Same with, as BK and I had made reference to yesterday, on ESPN. This is one of those foundation pieces that they've been looking for. They finally got the MVP kind of guy in Jordan Walker, but they're also starting to get a little bit now in J.J. Weatherholt. Yeah. Rookie of the Year consideration. And like you said, he's in the midst of a struggle right now, and it doesn't really feel like he's struggling, right, because of his at-bats. I mean, he took a 6 or 7 pitch walk against 103-mile-an-hour Mizorowski in that game the other day. This is the kind of piece that they've been looking for, him and Jordan Walker. Those are the 2 guys that are kind of the building blocks right now for the core of the St. Louis Cardinals.
And that would be massive for the team too, right? Because if they do win the Rookie of the Year, you're awarded a comp pick, correct?
Yeah, I believe that is the case.
Because they brought him up to play at the beginning of the season. So double whammy for the Cardinals if they can pull that one off. So, and with J.J. Weatherholt, again, when you're in a slump like this and you're still in that position, you expect to continue to climb and find yourself out of it. And even a slump, still 746 OPS for a guy that has continued to showcase
what's
his power.
What's his on base, 350 something?
Yeah, 353. Yeah, 353 is what I looked at. So
it's like when I looked at it the other day, it was 356. So, like, you've got that with Herrera and Burley in the high on base to just feed Jordan Walker. Like, this is why when we talk about that 5 through 9 being a black hole, this is why it's so frustrating because you watch the top 4 and you go, wow.
Yeah, and
this is something.
If they could get Lars Nootbaar back to what he has been when he's been healthy, that's where you add on to that length. It's just a matter of what's he look like and how long does it take him to get back to that position. Tanner Henderickson, Eric Harkey on the board for us today. I'm Alex Ferrario. We'll take a break and come back. Welcome in voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber, here on BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Hey, there's a few days left still in the month of May for you to take advantage of some of the May specials with Classic Air Care. Why do they give you May specials?
because they know that they're good for your unit. It gives you a chance to get ahead of it. How about an $89 maintenance special? They come on out to your house, they make sure everything's ready to go before this heat turns heavy and all that extra work gets put onto your air conditioner. If you're in the market for a new air conditioning unit, don't worry about it. They know the stress. They know what it's like, but they're here to help you get through it, and they're offering 12 months, no payments, no interest as well on new units as well. They're here for you. They've got a 4.8 Google rating for a reason. It's because they make the customer their number one priority. The work they do is guaranteed, and it is that important that they get it right. That's why so many people rely on Classic Air Care. They tell their families about them. They tell their friends about them. They've built up enough base to have a 4.8 Google rating. I use them. Alex Ferrario uses them. Get them out to your house as well during the month of May. It's Classic Air Care. Book an appointment online at classicaircare.com.
Good afternoon. My name is Eric Harkey with your Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Game 4 of the Canadians and the Hurricanes is tonight, and you can listen to that game on 101 ESPN. Pregame starts at 6:30, and puck drop is at 7 o'clock. This Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Always love our Wednesday conversations with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber, along with Tanner Henderickson and Eric Harkey. I'm Alex Ferrario. It's BK out the rest of this week on vacation. He'll be back on Monday. So we head to the Callier and Thompson hotline now to welcome in Chris Kerber. Kerbs, how's it going?
Alex, it's good. How are you?
Doing good. So let's start with the end of the Western Conference Final. As we all predicted, Kerbs, a 4-game sweep of the Colorado Avalanche, just as we all wrote it down before the season began.
Yeah, you know what? When this series started, I think it was even on your show, we talked about the fact that if Cale Makar isn't able to go, that's a great equalizer for Vegas. And then, man, Vegas really took it to them and grabbed a hold of that series. Their checking was suffocating, and then Colorado just couldn't overcome the injuries that they had and play even what looked remotely close to their game. So, man, once again, you got to give Vegas credit. Ballsy moves, aggressive moves, and they found a way to get back to a Western Conference championship and Stanley Cup appearance. Pretty impressive.
It really is. And, Kerbs, here's something that I was kind of wondering about with this playoff push by Vegas. What's the narrative from other teams with the John Tortorella hiring? And what I mean by that is, like, do teams look at what Vegas did to where they brought in a coach with 8 games left to play because they know that he's got a short lifespan with teams in terms of what the players react to, but if they can win with them quickly, you can capitalize on that? Do other teams maybe try and take advantage of that?
No, you know what? Lou Lamoriello did it years and years ago with Robbie Ftorek and Larry Robinson, right? You know, and I don't think you saw a massive change where people are willing to fire a coach with 8 games to go. And for those that say, boy, this is how you can do something, I'll give you the New York Islanders this year and show you how that's how you don't do something, right? So, I mean, I don't look at it so much as that. I think you've got to look at the Vegas Golden Knights as a whole and just look at the aggressiveness and where they've gone. I mean, when you're talking – in these last couple games, 1, maybe 2 of their own draft picks playing in it. And look, and again, I know we're still talking the first 10 years, but it's year 9 of an expansion team. I'm going to give you the first 4 or 5 years without any draft picks impacting you. But for the last 4 or 5, they've just constantly made deals, traded them away, you know, and then gone and gotten and picked up, you know, really good players. Now, look, yes, it's Vegas. They're winning. They're playing well. There's the aura about it, the taxes. Put it all involved. It's a place that people want to go. But I promise you, if they weren't winning, they wouldn't want to go there quite as much. Need an example of that? Look at the Florida Panthers over the life of their franchise, right? So I think if anything, you're looking at Vegas, you're looking at, hey, 30-year-old players aren't washed up. you can put players under contract, still surround them with other players, and still find a way to win, and give yourself a competitive chance. Look, and in a very weak Pacific Division, they finished with less than 40 wins and took advantage of that and made it to a Stanley Cup final. For the Colorado Avalanche, it was a much harder grind in the regular season and a much harder grind in the postseason. And you know what? Those two different tracks might have been a difference.
And Kerb's the lesson, and I don't know if you can really call it a lesson, is because it feels like it's been a tale as old as time in the hockey world. But the thing for me with the Vegas Golden Knights is the way that they just built that defensive core. I mean, all those guys are just so big that are back there. And that's what you think back to when the Blues ended up going on their cup run in 19. All of their guys were huge tree trunks that were back there with Bouwmeester, Parayko, Pietrangelo. I think that's kind of the thing that you look at with the Golden Knights, in my opinion. You look at them and you go, I think that's kind of what the Blues are trying to get back to, is pushing back towards getting that big size on the blue line, because I don't think it's a coincidence anytime there's been rumors of what the Blues might be trying to trade for. There's typically a defensive prospect that's involved in it.
Well, yeah, right. And it makes you scratch your head when you think about a 6'6", 32-year-old defenseman, right, that the Blues have. And you hear people talk about, well, do you trade this guy? Like, the answer is no in my book. Now, it doesn't mean they won't, but that's not in my realm of responsibility. That's theirs. But you're right, Tanner. Size matters. The defensive play of them, the ability to see. Look, Colorado wasn't minus size either, but without the difference is look, the first couple of games, Vegas has learned to play and learned to win without Mark Stone. Colorado has not gotten there without Cale Makar, and I think you can make the case that kind of proves that Cale Makar probably needs to be considered in league MVP talk, when you consider how important it is. That's a big gap that they were missing. But you're right. The size and the grind absolutely matters, and that's why – and I continue to think that's why the Blues continue, as you're right, Tanner, look for big defensemen, whether it be prospects or current players.
We're talking with voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber, here on BK and Ferrario. He's with us on the Callier and Thompson hotline. Kerb's on the Avalanche side of things. What do you think they do in terms of aggressive moves and head coach? Because this is an underwhelming finish for that team that I think had Stanley Cup aspirations.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't get the sense of any coaching issues. I know John Tortorella, obviously, was telling people to get off of Bednar's butt. But the reality of it is they're getting a little bit older. They milked what they could out of Landeskog, tried to get what they could out of Brent Burns. They brought an older player in Kadri back. And they got to the Western Conference Final. And again, I think you got to be careful here, because I think this series is totally different. And maybe not the same. I mean, maybe Vegas still moves on, but there's not a sweep, I think, if Colorado is healthy. So I do think I think you've got to look at their goaltending a little bit here. And I don't know that I'm questioning coaching, but they don't have a lot of cap space. So their challenges are real in terms of how they fix it. But when you have a core and you've got some key pieces like they do in Natchez and McKinnon and Makar and Taves and that group, you just got to get creative and go find some moves that are aggressive that make a difference. But I don't think you're looking at the tail end of a window by any means.
Kerbs, now talking about the St. Louis Blues, there was a piece by Jeremy Rutherford in The Athletic talking about Adam Jiricek. And anybody that you talk to, when you bring up Adam Jiricek's name, there seems to be everybody seems to say, hey, this guy is special. I know people around the Blues organization are very high on him as well. It's not a guarantee that he makes the team out of training camp. But if he is on the team, what do you think are realistic expectations for him as a rookie at his age?
Well, so you're talking about a young man that's going to turn 20 at the end of June. I think we just saw what a young and experienced defenseman could look like at times, and we saw that with Logan May. He did play 6 playoff games for Springfield, looked pretty good, did not record a point in that after being a very offensive-minded defenseman at junior. It's going to be a big jump. I would say temper all expectations. Expect growing pains. And if he comes in and able to light it up, like a Makar, Schaefer, I mean, keep in mind those guys are top, 4 first overall picks. But if he does come in, then great. You found that diamond in the rough with that, pick later on in the draft. So I think the one thing I just caution with when I look at the Blues defensively is kind of lost in all the comments that were made over this past year was a comment from Doug Armstrong that said they might have underestimated the loss of all that experience on the back end of Leddy and Suter in those 2,500 games. If you're looking at a scenario where if your top 4 defensemen or if your top 3 defensemen still include Broberg, Mailloux, and Parayko, right, and you're going to put a Lindstein because you really liked what you saw in the mix, then you continue and you say you're going to put a Jiricek in there, okay? You've still got a lot of youth in there, and you saw how the Blues struggled defensively this year because of that. So that's what they have to figure out is if they go more youth, how does that impact the team play? Or do you not go with quite so youth and you bring these guys along with some safety nets behind them and gives you more of a chance to be competitive? We'll see how those play out. But those are the scenarios that teams going with young defensive cores end up looking at.
That's interesting, Curbs. Just as a follow-up, how would they go about if they went down that path of saying, like, hey, let's make sure we have a little bit more veteran presence around these younger players? How do they find playing time for that? Because you'd think a Jiricek and a Lindstein and a Mailloux all in the lineup, and then you've got Fowler, Broberg, and Parayko.
Well, right, and so you've got Kessel, that's a restricted free agent, okay, that you've got to put an offer sheet to, and then you've got Tyler Tucker. So if the 6 you just mentioned, that leaves those 2 out. That tells me that one of those 2, Tucker or Kessel, probably isn't coming back. It also makes me wonder, do they find room for a veteran defenseman on another team somewhere? You've got to keep some veteran presence back there. It's just that important of a position that, I think if it didn't work right with Mailloux and Tucker most of the time because even Tucker was going through still youthful stuff in the National Hockey League. So you have the chance to go and let's not even really call Broberg veteran, right? But he's your top pair guy. But you've got to have 2 to 3 veterans in that group, I think, to bring guys along. And when you talk about playing time, Alex, they earn it. They'll make it. They'll play well enough. A Jiricek could come in and force your hand to move somebody, and that's what you're hoping for over some time. But you also don't need to rush them along because you've got coaching that you like down in Springfield, and he has the ability to play down there and continue to grow as well. So they're still going to take the very smart, patient approach with Jiricek because there's no need to force him along.
Playoffs continue tonight. Game 4, Canadians and Hurricanes, and you'll hear the action here on 101 ESPN. Pre-game starting at 6:30, puck drop at 7 o'clock. Curbs, always appreciate the time, my friend, and enjoy the rest of the week, and we'll talk next Wednesday.
You got it, guys. And, hey, big shout-out to Mike Ryder, Tommy Mattern, and everybody there that was able to help bring us, and Brian Smith in Springfield, bring us the Thunderbirds action while they were in it. That was pretty special to hear in St. Louis. So thanks you all for the great support, and we'll talk to you next week.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues, with us here on the Callier and Thompson hotline. I think I watched more AHL playoffs than I ever have in my life this season. So that goes to show you the excitement that was surrounding that. And, T-Bone, just a quick reaction to what Kerbs was talking about there. That is the part that I find fascinating in terms of what they do, because, yes, they talked a lot about losing that veteran presence that Leddy and Suter had, and I don't think it's just assumed Adam Jiricek is going to be on the roster, and maybe we'll get into this more tomorrow. I do think you have to keep Colton Parayko, but, man, if that's not enough, because they had Parayko and Broberg and Fowler this season, and it still wasn't enough, do you go out to free agency and try and add a veteran presence to make it the 4th veteran defenseman and only play 2 of Mailloux, Lindstein, and Jiricek and slow play it? Or do you have to go find a more veteran presence and maybe move on from a guy like Parayko or Fowler? I don't know how you do that to keep your team competitive, but that's going to be the decision that maybe nobody's talking about in terms of if the Blues decide to make offseason moves, do they add more veteran presence on that back end?
Yeah, and I hadn't really thought of adding a veteran from the outside, which I guess is possible that they could explore because, no offense to Tucker, but if you could upgrade there and have that guy as more of a rotating in and out, that would make some sense for the Blues. But I look at it, and I think the whole Parayko question just comes down to what are they going to sell as expectations, right? Mm-hmm. If your expectation is we hope to compete for a playoff spot. Not saying we are going to be a playoff team, but we're hoping that we're in that race.
Right.
Yeah, then you probably have to keep Parayko. But if you're retooling and shifting towards this next core, I don't see the problem with trading Parayko and then having Juracek up here. I get it. That's a very young defensive core. It's also just growing pains that go through a retool / rebuild, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And if they choose to do that and they set expectations properly, that might be beneficial to those guys.
Yeah.
So whatever they decide to do, I think it just depends on what they set expectations. If they say they're a playoff caliber team, then my expectation is they keep Parayko. If they're going to say, hey, we are shifting to a younger core, and that means we're still kind of in asset accumulation mode a little bit, then yeah, Parayko is gone because he just doesn't match up with your timeline.
Yeah, no, I think they would tell you that the upgrade over Tucker is Adam Juracek. It's just going to be, there's going to be growing pains that happen with Adam Juracek, just like there are growing pains that happen with Logan Mailloux this season, as we saw in the first few months. He's Tanner Henderickson, Eric Harkey as well. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up next, we'll dive into the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN.
is presented by Bet365. With Bet365 early payout, you win even if they lose. Get paid out instantly when your team goes up big, even if they blow the lead later. Bet365. Winning is everything.
Welcome in, Tanner Henderickson and Eric Harkey. I'm Alex Ferrario, BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. As Cardinals already through one inning of play and no fireworks. Nothing.
It's going to happen.
It's a clean game right now, T-Bone. So camera keeps panning to both Pat Murphy and Ollie Marmol, and nobody's fuming yet. So we'll see what happens the rest of the way. But before we get back into some college athletic conversation, as politics are getting involved with that, which is always a good conversation starter. T-Bone, what do you got for us today for the junk drawer?
So, 'tis the season for graduation ceremonies.
Oh, yeah.
As we know, once you get
much
to
as I
May,
hate weddings, graduation ceremonies might be up there.
Yeah, I don't know this is so much for the kids walking across the stage to get the diploma as it is for the parents to celebrate them. But a lot of people, some people do enjoy those in the family. Maybe you get the family together and it's an exciting time, off to college or you're graduating college and into the real world. Well, maybe not in Franklin, Tennessee. I don't think they were having a good time. Because there was a graduation ceremony in Franklin, Tennessee that turned into a soaking wet controversy after officials decided to keep the event outdoors during a torrential downpour.
Oh my God, that's just dumb.
And there is video of these kids. I mean, it is pouring, and they are getting soaked.
That is just dumb.
As they walk across the stage.
And they had to have known that this was, happening. The storm was coming. There was no avoiding it. Somebody was like, no, it takes too much work for us to adjust everything, so we'll just power through. Can't rain that much, right?
I don't know how you have this happen.
I'll never forget my sister graduating high school. Would have been 2005, I think, because it was before I got to high school. They had theirs outdoor, and a tornado had come through. I don't know if it landed there, but it was next to where they were at. So the ceremony started, a tornado came through, and in the midst of this ceremony, they had to pack everybody up and run them into the auditorium, because I was there, and I had to go home because it was they couldn't fit everybody in there. So you had to dispense all of the students and some of the parents, and everyone else had to leave before the tornado hit. That's not fun. Outdoor graduation shouldn't be a thing, unless you live in California.
I could get an outdoor graduation, but we gotta have weather permitting.
Well, yeah, you just do the graduations in the springtime when it's typically storms and when you get bad weather.
It was different because it was during COVID. My sister's high school graduation had to be outdoors because of the situation. And it was fine. It was done at our local park. It had the stage set up where they were able to get the diploma. It was a beautiful day. I remember the sun was out. I was like, oh, this is kind of nice. This is better than when I graduated high school. We had to do it in... Our school was built during World War II, and it hadn't really been upgraded.
Of course,
so we were in this extremely hot auditorium.
Shelter.
There are pictures of me from when I graduated, and I am just drenched in sweat from sitting in just that heater, essentially.
Those ceremonies are
outdoors.
4
I'm cool
hours.
But yeah, weather permitting.
You have to have a backup. If you're going to do it outdoors, have a backup that you're ready to go to in that moment.
You have to have a backup, but that's not one of those that you can kind of all right, sorry guys, next week. Sorry.
No, I mean the backup is look, if we get bad weather,
we got to have a plan to go indoors
somewhere. We're going to this
somewhere.
auditorium, and you get 2 parents and the student that get to be in there because we can't fit everybody in that spot. So here's the plan. This is what happens, rather than it just be hey, we'll figure this one out as we go. Before we go, Eric, you just graduated. You're done.
Yeah, done.
College, officially done for.
I'm done.
Did you walk in your graduation?
I did not. I didn't want to walk a high school graduation, to be fair.
Amen to that.
That was one I was kind of forced to do, but I was like, I don't really want
to that.
Ask him where he graduated from.
Where'd you graduate from?
Lewis and Clark.
Yeah.
Home of
LC, the Trailblazers.
Tanner Henderickson. That's what you go with, man.
I think it's this. That's what they started doing now.
Oh, jeez. You guys come up with gang signs for your college.
That wasn't the thing when I was there.
Really, it's just home of Mike Ryder is what we'll call it. That's really what this comes down to. Well, congrats to Eric Harkey, and congrats to anybody who pushes through those graduation ceremonies.
Been to the Harvard of the Midwest, Lewis and Clark Community College.
Man,
they don't let anybody in.
I think there should be a limit on how many speakers they have at those graduation ceremonies. There's always 5 people that give the same speech.
Or if we're going to have multiple, let's keep music
tight.
ready.
You get a tight 10 minutes. That's what you get.
The Oscars, they play people off. Let's get some music ready to play them off.
Wrong there. But still a pretty awesome time. So congratulations to anybody who's going through the graduation season. Tanner Henderickson, Eric Harkey, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15, you send us 2 scenarios. We'll tell you which is more likely to happen. But coming up next, Congress has a bill on the future of college athletics. And surprisingly, starting to kind of get on board with it. We'll discuss next here on 101 ESPN. Eric Harkey, I'm Alex Ferrario. So earlier today, Ross Dellinger had a piece over on Yahoo Sports. Issues abound. Is collective bargaining a viable solution for college sports? Quote, I never thought I'd say it, but I'm there on employment. And really what took place was at the U.S. Capitol, one offensive lineman from Temple, I believe, quote, said, it's important that we push for player representation and some kind of player union that gets us what we deserve. And another one from a women's basketball team said, quote, I think it's time to come to the truth. We are employees. I think this has come up in the past, and typically every time it comes up, T-Bone, people shoot this thing down. But as things continue to grow, and I believe in the piece it said that the NIL money was going to succeed $60 million in this next upcoming season, if I read that one correctly. So now Congress is getting involved in putting a bill out there for something that creates blockers for college athletics. And this is just kind of some of the bookmarks on this one. One-time transfer, 5-year eligibility, which is a pro player ban, which means they can't have professional players come back to college
towards
sports.
The college basketball side.
Yeah.
I guess it could apply to football, but we haven't really seen that.
But we've seen a ton of the college or the pro basketball players. There's a hard cap, a 5% max agent fee. The Lane Kiffin rule, which congrats, Lane, you got yourself a rule named after you, which is essentially what? Flipping from one college after one season?
During the season.
Yeah, during the playoff push or anything like that. Optional pooling of TV rights prohibits super leagues on this one. And towards the end of this piece, which I just kind of skimmed through earlier today, so I haven't been able to dig deep into it, but, it talked a little bit about, why would the players push for this? And really in Ross Dellinger's piece and speaking with a couple of different labor lawyers that have represented athletes in the past, this becomes very difficult to do. But the players, you'd wonder why they're doing this, because right now you have universities fighting over you, trying to spend as much money as possible. So really you're kind of capping yourself off as an athlete in college sports if you go into unionizing or creating this labor agreement. But on the flip side of this, the profit of all of these sports at universities is starting to dwindle. I think I saw in the piece somebody say, like, college basketball isn't as profitable anymore because of how much money goes into college football. So there's a lot of ins and outs with this one, but it really does sound like more and more people are jumping on board with a bill that would unionize college athletes.
Well, and I think the thing that you need is you're going to need, we talked about this in the past, because this bill that was presented by the two senators, the bipartisan bill that was presented, it's going to give some protections to that college sports commission. And, right now that's the big thing that can hold things back is there's no one that's really in charge, right? I mean, we see the NCAA try and intercept and try and put something down, like, for example, the quarterback situation with Chambliss at Ole Miss, right? NCAA says this guy's not eligible. He sues. Boom. Judge says, no, he can play, right? And you're seeing that across the board, and we've said this at times in the past, right? I think the only way that you were going to get to a spot to where you were going to have a body that can actually have any level of authority was it was going to have to come through Congress. Now, we'll see. There's going to be some ins and outs that come of this, and it's going to be debated for about a month, but at least there's something on the table. And some of it doesn't sound bad to me, right? I mean, like when you're talking about the idea that you only get one transfer unless there is a special cause in terms of like a coach is fired or a coach leaves, then you can get another one. Otherwise, you then have to sit out a year because you decide to transfer. That sounds okay to me. Now, we'll see if that one holds up, but that doesn't sound bad to me. The 5-year limit, I mean, we talked about that in college basketball along with the limiting of former pros coming back. I love that idea. And the idea behind this, too, the senator said, was to hopefully bring back more regionalism back towards some of these conferences. And that's part of why you see in that paper or in the tweet from Ross Dellinger and kind of describing this whole thing is part of the idea of the optional pulling of TV rights, trying to prohibit these super leagues. That way you don't end up with a USC that's in the Big Ten or they have to go out to Rutgers potentially, fly across the country. There's things in this bill that I really like, and we'll see if it's able to get through Congress. But the fact that we're finally getting some paperwork through legislation, that's where it's going to have to come, because it's hard to see the path for the NCAA to be able to really to hold up its own sentencing and to become a body that's in charge in the current landscape. They need help from Congress, and we'll see if this bill is able to do it for them.
We've talked so much about this to where it's like with college athletics, there's just so much gray. There's no black and white. I don't know if you can just create black and white. So at least you're trying to put some guidelines out there that create things a little bit more competitively. Let me ask you this, though, T-Bone, because I feel like excitement over the last few years has been in this transfer portal to where if your team's bad, I guess specifically in college football, but it applies for basketball as well. If your team's bad one year, you have hope every single season that, like, hey, they were bad, but if they strike on the transfer portal, we can put ourselves in a better position. It keeps more of these smaller schools competitive to where you do have chances to raise above your standards if you have success in this transfer portal. Does that go away? And is college football broken fans from the old way to where it was like, hey, you go into it like you go into your favorite professional team, to where it's, hey, time goes with this, right? Like, you're going to grow with these prospects. And as exciting as that is, college football feels like it's turned into more of a here and now, to where if my team's not good, next year I've got a better chance.
I mean, it might do it a little bit, but I think you need something so it's not the wild, wild west, right? Like, there is no rules in place right now. And I think everybody can agree that that's just not good and not healthy for the game itself and for the kids, honestly, too. I don't think it's good for them because I think some of them are getting bad advice as well. But I think there will be some of that, but like for the most part, I still think the transfer portal is going to be exciting, right? Because you still get a transfer. That doesn't mean you use it after your freshman year. Somebody might wait till this might lead to guys sticking around for a year or two,
longer,
develop a little bit more, and then enter into the portal. And you're still going to have coaches. Like, this isn't going to be anything that's going to help coaches out. And what I mean by that is job security, especially if the playoff expands. We're still going to see coaches get fired. We're still going to see coaches leaving some of these mid-major programs and end up moving up to bigger jobs. If anything, this will help the mid-major programs because it may limit how many guys just constantly transfer in and out of their programs. But it'll have some of that, but I think ultimately it's for the better of college athletics, and I think that's what's most important about trying to get this bill passed.
So one team state is trying to do as much of none of this as possible. So Georgia essentially is trying to separate themselves from what the NCAA is doing and try and do their own thing, which makes sense when you're a powerhouse like what Georgia has been. This is the quote from Kirby Smart. Quote, "I've been a huge advocate that we can't find rules that everybody played by, then we should play by our own. I'm not afraid of that," Smart said Tuesday during his spring meetings. "I'm not afraid to break away and say that our conference is strong enough to go out and have and play." I mean, like, if we could actually function and it financially would make our programs more stable, we could support things financially. I'm talking about all the sports and do by our own rules. I'd be all for that. As much as Kirby Smart can say that, I don't think a lot of schools can have that same feeling. Like, I don't think they can support it the same way that Georgia can support something like
this
that.
This is going to be this is one of those where the SEC kind of flirts with the idea of separating from the NCAA because he brings this up from the Georgia perspective, but I know there's been multiple schools that have kind of talked about this in the past. I think this is why you're trying to see some of this legislation get done, because it won't be till 2031 or 2032 when the contract expires with ESPN on the college football playoff deal. Once that happens, if there's nothing in place, I think that this is when this could seriously become a conversation. I don't know if anything will happen of it. You know, as much as Kirby Smart loves to say, well, we want to play by the rules and we want to go out there and do this.
We want our own rules.
The NCAA won't make rules that are that can be held up. The SEC will break apart and we'll unionize with those players in the conference, and then we'll set the boundaries. Let's be honest, I bet you Kirby doesn't really want rules. You know, I think he wants some stuff cleaned up a little bit. He doesn't want to be held back. None of these coaches, all these coaches that cry out there, if we want rules, we want rules, we want this, they're lying to themselves. Because you know what they're doing? They're not playing by the rules, right? They're all trying to find an advantage. They don't really want to be legislated. That's the whole idea what the College Sports Commission was supposed to be. And they've just kind of blown past that because they just realized it has no authority.
Well, and that's what they did before. Before there was the NIL. They were trying to find rules to sneak by, and of course it was caught an awful lot. It's funny, though, because when you read this article from Ross Dellinger and you see Mike Elko making comments, Texas A&M's quote, saying, quote, "If we don't get a level of regulation in the market, a lot of people are going to go bankrupt." So there's going to be a lot of conversation surrounding this. I'm with you. Like, reading off these bullet points of what this bill includes, all of it makes it seem like it's exciting. I don't think you get everybody on board with this, because I think this is walls that people start to get upset with because it doesn't give them that freedom to do whatever they want, like Kirby Smart is talking about. And that's where I think things get a little bit stickier in this conversation and for these universities. With Tanner Henderickson and Eric Harkey, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15, Ken Rosenthal had a piece out pointing out that parity isn't a problem in baseball. Was he right? We'll get to that in 15. But coming up next, you send us 2 scenarios. We'll tell you which is more likely to happen here on 101 ESPN.
likely to happen? They'll figure it out. BK and Ferrario's most likely to happen.
$314-399-9646 is our Air Comfort Service text line. Our YouTube channel over at 101 ESPN STL. You click on BK and Ferrario and you can watch the show and you can comment in our graveyard chat and join in on the conversation there. By the way, your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. It's 527. That's the date. It's 118. I don't know. I'm having a little bit of a stroke right now, I think. It's time for More Likely to Happen. You send us 2 scenarios. We will tell you which one is more likely to happen. I'll start this one off. More likely to happen. J.J. Weatherholt wins Rookie of the Year this season, or Adam Yurichek wins Rookie of the Year next season.
Oh, that's fun.
I thought about Carbonneau, but I don't know if he's going to be on the team the whole year. Yurichek's the one.
I don't know about Yurichek's the whole year.
You know what? Fair point as well.
I would say it's more likely Weatherholt. One, already seen him, so I can tell just by watching he's going to have himself a chance to win the award. And 2, I feel like it's hard for a defenseman to win Rookie of the Year. You almost have to be a point-producing guy, and it's not to say Yurichek won't be. But if you're not that, I feel like it's hard to win Rookie of the Year. If you would have said Carbonneau, I would have leaned a little bit maybe more towards him. But defensemen feel like it's hard to get that Rookie of the Year, so I'll say it's Weatherholt.
So Matthew Schaefer is going to win it this year. Lane Hudson won it in 2025. Moritz Seider won it for the Detroit Red Wings. What did Seider do? Moritz Seider won it in 2022 when he put up 50 points, so 7 goals and 50 total points. Cale Makar, of course. Ekblad won it in 2015.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting to look at because I doubt that he did 50 points.
No, and also I wonder, was that still kind of the defensive-minded 12 goals and 39 points? So the 12 goals, really it's the goals is what gets you there because Schaefer put up a ton of points this season, but he scored 25 goals. So as much as I'm saying this and defending it, I think it's more likely that J.J. Weatherholt wins it. But if Yurichek can put up 15 goals, which I'm not going to assume that's possible, it's a chance. T-Bone, what do you got?
Who's more likely, I should say, to fall out of the NL playoff picture? The St. Louis Cardinals or the San Diego Padres? Padres have the worst, and I mean worst, offense in baseball.
I think it's the Padres are more likely. Like, at least for the Cardinals, man, they can hang their hat on Walker, Herrera, Burleson, and Weatherholt. What do the Padres hang their hat on?
Pitching.
Name their pitchers and tell me that you're excited about them for the rest of the season.
Their rotation's not great. Michael King would be the guy. But they've got a hell of a bullpen to where they can just go 5 and dive with Griffin Canning and I think Bueller's there.
But they're not scoring runs.
Yeah, they're very fragile.
Manny Machado is not really good for them. Tatis still is not hitting home runs. Jackson Merrill has struggled a little bit. Like at least the Cardinals have some offense. I think I would go the Padres there.
I would say it's more likely the Cardinals fall out. And the reason for me is I'm always going to bet on pitching. Now, it's a fair retort on their rotation because their rotation outside of King is not that good.
Yeah. But when your bullpen's elite, you can get through.
They've got names of like yesteryear. It's like, oh, yeah, I remember when Walker Buehler was good. Oh, yeah, Griffin Canning, yeah, he wasn't bad. But then you look at the numbers, you go, oh, my gosh. I would say the reason, though, is because of that bullpen. That bullpen is unbelievable. Yeah. And I'm also going to bet on Preller's going to do something at the trade deadline. I have no idea what. That guy's a madman. He traded like the 3rd best prospect in baseball for a freaking closer last year. But if the Cardinals are, we were talking about this off air, if the Cardinals are kind of 50-50, do we buy or sell? The tiebreaker goes to sell. Yeah. You know, so I would say that it's more likely the Cardinals fall out. And, you know, with their offense, they've got 4 guys, but man, they've got a black hole at the bottom of the order now.
And when you're 50-50 of buy or sell for A.J. Preller, it's always buy. There's never the sell conversation. Let's get to some of these on the Air Comfort Service text line 314-399-9646 from the 618. More likely to happen. The Blues make 2 offseason trades, or the Cardinals make 2 trades at the deadline.
I'm assuming they mean buy would be my guess when they say 2 trades for the Cardinals.
I guess I could
Either
see
way,
the
because the
sell.
Cardinals will make 2 trades.
Yeah, because the Blues could be buy or sell.
Let's say 2 trades. Well, that's fair too.
God, I think both are likely in this spot. Like, I go through the trade candidates on the Cardinals side of things. You've got Nootbaar, you've got Dustin May, you've got Riley O'Brien, you've got Jimmy Crooks. I go through the trade scenarios on the Blues side of things. You've got 3 draft picks. You got Kyrou, you got Parayko. I'll say Cardinals, though, because the Blues have more no-trade clauses that can limit the ability to make moves.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. I think I'm going Cardinals as well, because either way, like if you're buying, they're probably doing like 2 marginal moves. And if they're selling, as you read off, May and those guys. For the Blues, you've got to worry about the no-trade clauses. And as much as we've talked about it, and I think it's a bad idea, I mean, they also have a path of least resistance to where if they're not getting the offers they like or the price tag's too high to make moves, they can just run it back. Mm-hmm. So I would say it's more likely it's the Cardinals then.
Yeah. I would be amazed if they run it back with the same roster for how bad this past season was. But there is a scenario that is the case for the Blues. More likely to happen from we too low, the Cardinals win more than 80 games, or the Blues make the playoffs next year. Where are the Cardinals at right now?
29? They're Pythag, if you care about that number. They're below 500 and expected to win some losses.
I saw the 26 and 27. I think it's still the Cardinals winning 80 games. I
would too.
I think the Blues are going to be in a race with about 4 or 5 teams to make the playoffs. I can see it happening. I think you're more certain that the Cardinals would have to have an epic collapse if they lose or win less than 80 games.
Yeah, I would say it's the Cardinals. The thing with the Blues is, one, you know me, I'm very skeptical of the core. I'm very skeptical of them actually showing up at the beginning of the year again. On top of the fact that, I think you can lock in 3 of the playoff spots in the Central. Colorado's not going anywhere. Dallas isn't going anywhere. Minnesota's not going anywhere.
Correct.
Utah's clearly on the rise, in my opinion.
Utah gave Vegas the hardest matchup in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, so now we're talking about one spot between a multitude of teams, as you just kind of made reference to. So, yeah, I would say it's more likely Cardinals win 80 games.
From the 618, more likely to happen, the Blues acquire a number 2 center before the start of the season, or the Cardinals acquire a number 2 starter by the trade deadline.
It'd be...
I think it's
depending on how we define a number 2 starter.
A number 2 clear-cut starter. Not a...
Well, for us, it'd be a clear-cut number 1.
Yeah, well... Not a Cardinals number 2 starter, a Major League Baseball number 2 starter. Like the rest of their time in St. Louis that's a number 2. I think it's the Blues. I don't think the Cardinals are going to spend the necessary money or trade equity to go get that, versus the Blues realistically could do that. I think they could make a move for Mason McTavish. I think they could make a move for one of the centers from Seattle. The question if they become a number 2 center long-term is a valid one.
Yeah.
But I think it's more likely the Blues make that move.
Yeah, I would agree, because I think what you said about the Cardinals is the thing that would hold me back. They're just not going to spend. When we say buyers at the deadline, we've been kind of cautioning people of this over the last week or so. We're not saying they're going out and trading for Joe Ryan from the Twins.
Right.
We're talking about acquiring, and I don't even know, he may not even fit in this because he was at least good last time I saw him, Reed Detmeyers from the LA Angels. Guys of that kind of ilk.
Yeah.
Guys that are 3 or 4s, right? That just come in, eat innings. Maybe you're a little bit better than the guys that you have. For the Blues, you mentioned there's some outs at least to go out and acquire in the offseason to kind of trade for. Maybe they're not the number 2 now, but maybe they develop into that. I could see the scenario where they make that move because they seem to be wanting to be aggressive with their assets.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. Let's get a couple more of these on the Air Comfort Service text line, 314-399-9646. What's more likely to happen? We get one mega 32-team conference in college football where the players unionize and become college employees.
One mega 32-team
Yeah, I was
conference.
going to say, I just don't think we're going to see the players unionize.
I'm skeptical of them unionizing because, like you said, they've got the wild, wild west right now. And if you're them, why would you want to be...
You make the most money right now.
Yeah, I mean,
you could play 7 years.
You have all the leverage, right? I mean, why would the players want to lose some leverage? So I would say it's a 32-team mega conference. and it would be like the Big Ten merging with the SEC.
Yeah, I think it makes more sense to have the flexibility to get whatever you want on the market rather than and play as many years as you want if you don't make the pros right away versus being unionized and being limited. That doesn't benefit you long term. Two more. This one from the 573. More likely to happen, the Cardinals give Weatherholt an extension or the Blues give Snuggerud an extension? I think this one's obvious. It's Snuggerud. I just don't. We've talked about this. I don't think there's any appetite to extend J.J. Weatherholt. You got control and you're not worried about it. Snuggerud, like, you've got control, but you'd like to lock up a goal scorer if he becomes a 50-goal scorer to a decent contract before he gets too expensive.
Yeah, I agree with you. It doesn't make sense to sign J.J. Weatherholt because you already have his age 20 years, right? You don't need to go out and do that for Snuggerud. I mean, I don't know what it'll look like, but he's up for a contract extension. My guess is they probably want to get it done so they have some cost certainty for a couple of years rather than going to his RFA status.
Final one from the 636. More likely to happen, Kyrou stays and scores 30 goals, or he stays and has another down year, and the Blues are stuck with Kyrou and Buchnevich.
Stays and scores 30 or disappoints. I would say I would bet on him scoring 30 again. I mean, I understand it's a one-off year for him. I don't play that to injuries. I still don't believe the injuries caused that. But I would think if he has another down year, then his time in St. Louis is actually probably locked in place because at that point, nobody's trading for him because you can't even sell the idea of, well, no, he is a 30-goal scorer. Sure, 2 years ago he was a 30-goal scorer, but not now. So if he ends up sticking around, I expect he's going to put his head down and really put in the work and get back to that.
Yeah, I would actually say the opposite. I think it's more likely that he has another down year. I don't think they have a center for him that he can produce the 30-plus goals. I think he's going to have to generate that himself, and I don't think they're going to break up the Thomas Snuggerud-Holloway line just to get Kyrou going. So I think it's more likely that he has an underwhelming year, and you get stuck in that scenario versus him going out there and scoring 30-plus.
Can they acquire that number 2 center without putting him in the package? I mean, you got 3 first-round picks.
Yeah, I think so, but you'd have to give up your draft picks or you'd have to trade something else off your NHL roster. Like that Darren Dreger report of them getting creative with Anaheim. I think Anaheim was one of those teams that wanted Colton Parayko. Before they got John Carlson, I think they wanted Colton Parayko, and they couldn't come to terms. Would you trade Colton Parayko for Mason McTavish? I don't think so because
I think that's probably too much.
I think that hurts your team in the long run. Like, yeah, you get a center, but your defense is bad. So, yeah, I mean, I think you can get it without Kyrou, but you probably have to give up 11 and 15. And would you rather trade for a guy that you don't know what he's going to be versus a prospect that's younger and controllable and cheaper? So that's going to be the tough battle. So, no, I don't think you can acquire the center without having to give up Kyrou plus more assets. But it's an interesting scenario nonetheless. Tanner Henderickson, Eric Harkey, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up next, Ken Rosenthal's got a piece about the competitive balance in baseball. Does he have a point? We'll get into that next here on 101 ESPN.
Good afternoon. My name is Eric Harkey with your SportsCenter update brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. The Cardinals are taking on the Milwaukee Brewers right now at the top. It is the top of the fourth. The score is 0-0 with 2 outs in the top of the fourth. This SportsCenter update was brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. You'll be saying, I love my windows.
Ken Rosenthal had a piece over on The Athletic, quoted as labor fight looms, success of some Major League Baseball division leaders adds intrigue to the trade deadline. And although the premise of his piece is true, talking about a lot of these teams that are having success, when you talk about the division leaders, you've got 4 of the 6 are revenue sharing recipients. The Brewers, the A's, the Rays, and the Guardians. Think about that for a minute. The Brewers, Rays, A's, Guardians lead their division. Now, 2 of those 3 don't surprise me at all. The third one seems to always be there with the Guardians, and then the A's are the one that's surprising more than anything else. But
they play in a minor league ballpark.
It makes sense, and they got the advantage in that one. But there was a deeper part into the article that kind of caught my eye, T-Bone. And in the early portion of Ken Rosenthal's piece, he talks about those revenue sharing recipients, saying the timing would be rather inconvenient for major league owners who want to justify a salary cap in part by arguing that such teams operate at too great a competitive disadvantage. He said, forgive my cynicism, but the owners created this unfortunate landscape, insisting the sport's competitive balance is out of whack when the standings again indicate otherwise. Now, here's my problem with this. I understand what he's saying. Like, when you look at it, and you're like, so what's the problem, Major League Baseball, if you're going to tell me that we need a salary cap because the Dodgers keep winning? Well, the Dodgers aren't even the best team right now in their division or in Major League Baseball. The regular season doesn't matter. The problem for where baseball is at is just that. This is great for the Brewers and the A's and the Rays and the Guardians to be the division crown. But when you get into the playoffs and you've got Freddie Freeman, when you've got Shohei Ohtani and Mookie Betts on top of Kyle Tucker, and then them rolling out 3 guys who can win the Cy Young at any point in the season, and when they sweep the series and when they get to the World Series again, that's where the problem really lies. The regular season is fun, but how much fun is it for these teams that are leading their division when they know, hey, you're going to have to go up against the Goliath once you get to the postseason? That's where Major League Baseball's got the problem, not so much in the regular season and these teams that are leading their divisions.
Yeah, and I think that's when it becomes an interesting debate of like, so is this or is this not competitive balance problem? Because I agree with you. In the regular season, I don't think it is a problem. You know, we see teams like the Rays. I've been a factor in the AL East for quite a while, and they're doing that in a division with the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Orioles, who look like they're willing to spend a little bit under their new ownership group, and on top of, you know, a team that has a whole country to it in the Toronto Blue Jays. So, you know, and that right there says enough of, okay, well, if Tampa can do this, then is there really a competitive balance issue? I don't think there is in the regular season, but I think your point is spot on. Is anybody really believe in those teams when we get to October? Now, the AL, you might be able to make an argument that whole side of things sucks. But I look at that and go, okay, so the Yankees are going to win the American League this year. I know they're not winning their division. I feel like they're on a collision course with the Dodgers for the World Series. Maybe you could argue the Braves, but again, the Braves aren't a small market team. Yeah. This Brewers team is fun, right? Every year I do this where I don't believe in them, then I fall for them, and then I say they're going to win in October, and then they get clobbered by the LA Dodgers. It happened again last year. I think the same thing's going to happen this year. They're a fun story, and then they're going to lay an egg when we get to October. And it's all about, to me, do all these teams have a legitimate shot at a World Series? And my answer is no. You know, I think it is. You got to be the big market teams that are spending these big dollars. It's why I believe the Yankees can get there. It's why I believe that the Dodgers will get there. And then it goes again to the conversation that I think gets lost with all these baseball writers. It's also about free agency when we get there, right? When we talk about free agency, I don't hear the Athletics in on anybody. I don't hear the Guardians in on anybody. All I hear them is making excuses why they're not on anybody.
Tampa sells.
And the other problem that you have is the fact that the Dodgers are really starting to inflate the market in their favor. And what I mean by that is, look at the contract that they gave Kyle Tucker this past offseason. look, not every team can go out and afford a Kyle Tucker, but no team's going to be able to afford him when he gets the contract that he got from the LA Dodgers, which was a huge overpay, right? I mean, you look at his deal, it's a $240 million deal over 4 years, right? We're not talking $240 million over 7 or 8 years. I think any team can potentially make that work. In a 4-year period like that, I think that's when you're getting to a point where it gets tough. And then the fact that they can really inflate things with the deferred money where they put $30 million in deferrals in that deal, that's the bigger issue, to where you've got too many markets knowing, okay, the offseason's not for us, and then when we get to October, we're not going to be able to compete with these big market teams. That's the problem that lies in baseball. The competitive balance in the regular season, yeah, teams find a way to win, but they're not winning any meaningful games, right? They're not winning when it matters most. In October, I'm in agreement with you there.
Yeah, and in the piece that Ken Rosenthal did, you know, he talked about the Milwaukee Brewers back in 2008 when they went out and they traded for CC Sabathia. There wasn't a juggernaut that season that you felt like you couldn't beat. And what I mean by that is, like, he brought up the idea of the Brewers trading for Tarek Skubal at this deadline. I don't think teams want to go and spend the equity in their minor league system and go bring in more money if they know that it's going to eventually lead to them losing in the NLCS. And maybe that's bad ownership because, like, hey, the NLCS is fun, as BK would say, and that's enjoyable, and I would love that. But I don't know if owners value that, because it's like, well, if we can't beat that team, why would I go out there and spend my future assets if I've got a system that works? I'm just going to keep where we're at. So free agency isn't exciting because the market has been dampened down by a team like the Dodgers, and the trade deadline's not as exciting because these teams don't do anything, whereas the Dodgers will just go out there and continue to spend their assets in the minor leagues because they don't care how much money they take on. They'll take on as much money as possible if it helps them win the World Series. The problem is always the playoffs. The regular season is still exciting, and numbers show that because your team is doing something nobody expected. The A's right now, that's exciting. The Rays, the Guardians. But it doesn't get exciting when you get into September and October when the Dodgers are getting healthier and things start to go in their direction.
And the thing, and someone made reference to this on the text line, is the Dodgers, with their money and might, they can spend to where if they lose an ace, like they've lost Tyler Glasnow, he's on the IL. They had Blake Snell have surgery on his elbow to remove loose bodies. All right, well, let's use the Brewers as an example to kind of compare here. If the Brewers lose Mizorowski, their ace, and Harrison, who we saw last night, how do you think the Brewers are? Odds are they can't handle that. Now, I know they've dealt with injuries in the past, and they've done a decent job. They did it with their lineup earlier in the year. Most teams can't handle those kind of injuries, but the Dodgers, because they're able to stockpile all this talent and are able to just spend enormous amounts of money, okay, well, we lose Blake Snell. Guess what? We've got Yamamoto behind them, right? You know, you look at their 40-man roster, and you look at, and some of this is to their credit, they've done a very good job of developing pitching behind it, but they are able to just constantly have 6-man rotation. That is, oh, okay, well, we lost Snell, we lost Glasnow. Well, we've also got Ohtani, we've got Yamamoto. By the way, we went out and we got Sasaki to add to this. If they wanted to, they could pick up Skubal's, whatever, it'll be $10 to $15 million left on his contract, while some teams won't be able to do that. So, yeah, no, there is still an issue to be had in this, and this is why there is going to be a labor fight here in the offseason to where I think we're potentially going to miss games. I just don't buy the premise of, well, look at these division leaders. This is actually, baseball's in a good spot. None of these division leaders, of those 4 teams, none of them are going to the World Series.
Yeah, so we'll get into this more on Friday, but I don't know if people have been paying attention, but does anybody still believe that the Cubs are good? Because they've lost 10 in a row. Pete Crow Armstrong has just basically gone absent for their team since that White Sox incident with the fan at center field. Their pitching is hurt. Their offense is starting to really dry up. I saw people that were tweeting to David Kaplan yesterday saying, like, oh, they should start firing some coaches and instructors to light a fire.
I bet Cap was in on that.
He responded the way I would have responded and said, what do you think that's going to do? I don't know if the Cubs are the team to, well, they're not the team to beat anymore. The Milwaukee Brewers are obviously the team to beat in the NL Central, but, man, I think the Pirates might be better than the Cubs right now. I think the Cardinals might be better than the Cubs, barring what happens this weekend. But I don't know where you are at, T-Bone, if you're starting to fall out of this Chicago Cubs hype.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of them because you mentioned they've with their loss yesterday, they've lost 10 in a row. They've also won 10 in a row twice this year. Like, I have no idea what to make of that. I think they're easy to explain, and they're dealing with just too many injuries right now. Now, again, as we just talked about, that's not necessarily an excuse for squads. And if you were at the Dodgers, you'd have more guys that could help you make up for that. But I think right now they're without Edward Cabrera, who got placed on the IL. They're without Matthew Boyd. They're without Justin Steele. They're without Cade Horton. I think you're seeing they just don't have the pitching depth.
Yeah.
So my answer is I think they are a fine team. I don't think they're awful, but I don't think they're good enough to be a NL Central winner like I thought at the beginning of the year. I think they're a team that's going to be a fringe wild card team, and it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing and if they can hang around in this, right? Maybe we could be wrong on this. This may be a 10-game losing streak, but they may not necessarily get back and going. I looked at it. If you take away the 3 winning streak or the 3 long 10-game streaks for them, they're 9-16 on the year.
Yeah.
So maybe they are more of that team. I would still bank, though, that their offense is too good that it should be able to carry them enough to where they're going to be floating around 500 by the time we get to the deadline.
Yeah, that's why this weekend series is going to be fascinating, especially for the Cardinals that'll lose the series to the Brewers. They lost the series to the Pirates. They split against the Cincinnati Reds. Man, you try and make good for this stretch that we were all putting our eyes on to see where the Cardinals would be at. And if you can find a way to beat the Cubs, I think the narrative's a little bit different. But, boy, if you lose to a team that's lost 10 in a row, potentially 11 in a row when they take on the Pirates later today, I think that's going to really frustrate a lot of Cardinals fans that had that hype early on in the regular season. He's Tanner Henderickson, Eric Harkey helping us out on the board today. I'm Alex Ferrario. We'll come back and hit the rewind next year on 101 ESPN.
Run it back with the Daily Rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Well, we have our first run of the ball game. And as you would imagine, Brian Torres coming through with the big hit. He triples on a hit that scores Jordan Walker. So the Cardinals lead 1-0 right now in the top of the fifth. Ivan Herrera at the plate. I thought he was plunked. Foul ball off the foot. That's a stinger. But more importantly in this one, T-Bone, like we talked about at the beginning of the show today, if McGreevy regresses, you look to somebody else who can step in. And boy, Dustin May has been great. He has yet to give up a hit. And he's got 7 strikeouts through 4 innings against this Milwaukee Brewers squad, man. Dustin May has continued to grow this season from where his first couple of starts were.
Yeah, he's been very good of late. I mean, you look back over his last couple of starts, 4 of his last 5 have been quality starts. 6 innings, 3 earned runs or fewer. You'll sign up for that any day of the week. I wonder if we won't see Herrera in the rest of the game because he just went limping down to first base while running.
Well, Jimmy Crooks might be getting a call up soon.
But, you know, he had a little bit of a rough outing his last one against Pittsburgh, but he's been awesome today.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I know it didn't go well for McGreevy last night, and Libby, I know a lot of, eye to the beholder, but Cardinals staff against a pretty good contact hitting team has looked pretty good in this series. Mm-hmm. You mentioned the strikeouts for Dustin May so far today. You look at the game yesterday, McGreevy had, I think it was 7.
Yeah, and
Libby
10 for Libby.
Yeah, Libby looked very good as well. Like, that's a little surprising, and it's at least something to keep an eye on. I don't think McGreevy is one that's going to be consistent. I was hoping we'd see a little bit more swing and miss from Dustin May, and he's really got it going today. So it's encouraging because of what you said. If there is regression coming for McGreevy, someone's going to have to kind of help step up so you can kind of get that equalizing effect, and it looks like it might be coming from Dustin May.
He's got a good pitch count, too. Through 4 innings, he's got 54 pitches thrown, so he's in a really good spot
also,
right now.
Bacon Wrap Wiener must be from the future. He says May has 10 strikeouts, so that means he must strike out the side in the bottom of the 5th.
Wow. Okay, so we are going to be behind then on our Cardinals game that we're watching because Bacon Wrap Wiener,
if that's true.
If he does and predicts the future. Well, and he's also ahead of MLB.com because MLB.com has him only at 7. So congrats to you, Bacon Wrap Wiener, and please give me some more answers about what the offseason is going to look like for the Blues with your prediction
can only
machine.
See about
20
minutes.
Just 20 minutes ahead?
Yeah.
What a crappy gift that you have if it's only 20 minutes into the future.
Into the future for
only 20 minutes?
Yeah.
I feel like that's boring.
Tell me if there's a wreck on the highway. Well, if I'm going to be stuck on the road for a while.
I guess that's fair, but that's really all it does for you. But
so that's all I need to know. Who to bet on for a home run.
T-Bone only cares about the in-game betting and traffic that you may run into. If you missed anything from our show today, as always, you could check it out on the podcast page after the show. Eric and T-Bone do a great job putting it up there for you. You can check that out. The podcast brought to you by Schaefer Door Company. It's on the ESPN 101 app, which is brought to you by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. And you can also check it out on the YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. You can watch it there. You can also check out the most recent episode of the Redbird Report that T-Bone and BK put together. And we're going to have a new episode out today of the Last Minute Blues podcast. I made the executive decision of not doing it on video, mostly because I'm an idiot. So it's going to be audio only, but we'll have more video for you on that front coming up next Wednesday. So to kind of put a bow on this one, T-Bone, as the Cardinals are wrapping up this game against the Milwaukee Brewers, they're going to lose 2 of 3, hoping to avoid the sweep against Milwaukee. I think this stretch has changed maybe some expectations for people, but for the Cardinals, you mentioned the swing and miss stuff that they're getting from the pitching. That at least is a positive sign of where things are at. What hasn't been a positive has been the offense beyond your top 4. Other than Brian Torres today, you had Nolan Gorman, who's picked up a hit, but you have 0 for 2 for Pedro Pages, 0 for 1 for Victor Scott, and Mason Wynn 0 for 2. Right now, the issue for the Cardinals is 5 through 9, and they got to find a way to get that thing going.
Yeah, and look, when you get to the 7 through 9, that's when you start most teams aren't too thrilled with the bottom 3 in their order. They really need that 5 and 6 spot to get going. Gorman hit today. That's a good sign. When you'd like to see him pick it up a little bit offensively. Or Torres, right? I think Torres is going to be a guy that's going to be interesting because he's not just here competing for his life as a big leaguer. He's here competing potentially for Victor Scott's job because Nootbaar's coming back here soon. He's in the final stretches of his rehab assignment, and if Torres continues to play well, I think there's a chance we're going to see him as the starting center fielder over Victor Scott. So it's encouraging to see him get a hit. Again, those guys aren't going to typically go 2 for 4, 3 for 4, put together a bunch of really big games. Can they come through in a moment like Torres did today? Comes through with a 3-2, I think it was full count. Walker was going, gets the triple into the corner, and boom, brings home a run. That's what you need from the bottom of the order, just to find a way to come up with that timely hit every now and then. And then if you can get one of them going in that 5-6 spot, then you'll feel really good about this lineup.
Yeah, I mean, it's the spark that you need from guys like that. Like, especially when Wynn struggles or Fermin struggles and when Victor Scott's struggling, you need somebody to come up and just capitalize on that moment. And Brian Torres is doing it right now. When Lars Nootbaar comes back, you start to feel a little bit better about the lineup, and you can lengthen that lineup, and rather worrying about 5 through 9, maybe you're only worried about 7 through 9. If you add 2 more hitters into a lineup that can benefit you, then you're in a really good position moving forward from there. So again, if you missed anything from the show today, we had a conversation with Chris Kerber talking about the postseason. We talked about the lineup. We talked about Michael McGreevy's regression, and also about college athletics and how there might be a possibility of unionizing soon for the athletes. So you can check all that out on our podcast page, 101ESPN.com. A big shout out to Eric Harkey, who filled in for us today with no BK. For Eric and Tanner Henderickson, I'm Alex Ferrario. We'll be back with you tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane coming up next, 2 to 6 here on 101 ESPN.